miss it. This Saturday, college football on ESPN Radio is back.
Welcome, everybody, to the college football season.
High-stakes game, two great programs.
I mean, it's a heavyweight matchup right out of the gate.
It's a monster opening weekend showdown as the third-ranked Clemson Tigers face the fifth-ranked Georgia Bulldogs.
For the first time in a long time, the Bulldogs' deep threat can bite.
Run it, Clemson, Georgia. Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ABC. Presented by Dr. Pepper.
We are Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
And into the end zone goes Chris Olave.
KJ Hill, 6-yard touchdown catch.
Right sideline and down he goes to the end zone.
WING 1410 Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local.
What are you going to miss? He struck him out.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, happy Monday. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. And look at all that energy Kev has right off the bat.
Football is here.
Happy week one of the college football season, everybody. That's right. It was pretty cool. Week 0. I don't know why we do week 0. I kind of like it. I don't know if I want the NFL to do week 0, but that would make next week 0. I'll take week 0 over preseason any day. But the preseason is officially wrapped up. We'll talk about our biggest takeaways from what the Browns and Bengals as preseason wrapped up yesterday. Both teams. I think that for the Bengals, non-hater take aside here, I think that there's a little bit more questions than answers. They just made a big trade today. I don't know about big, but a name of interest is on the way out of Cincinnati, heading to New York. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. Vegas Insiders has Ohio State's win total odds, Kev, at 11. That means that there's a loss hidden in that schedule. Where is that loss? Kev and I will dissect the Buckeyes schedule. They kick off the season this coming up Thursday night. I'm really hoping that loss does not exist already this Thursday night. If they do lose, then we need a 12-team playoff, damn it. I'm telling you. All right. So lots to get into. We'll have our sympathy meter. We haven't done the sympathy meter in a while. Lots of interesting things, especially I don't know if you saw that the Baez storyline out of the Mets. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be a hypocrite today. A while back I got mad at Reds fans for booing Eugenio Suarez, but I figured that's where the homerism in me comes in. I get defensive of the players that I like, but I think that the fans have the right to boo and all that. We'll get into that coming up here just around the corner. But let's open up with this. So the Cincinnati Bengals, Kev, Billy Price is gone. They trade him. Trey Hopkins' development over the last couple of years has really made that simple. Paul Dehner Jr. covers the Cincinnati Bengals for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Talked about this or tweeted about this earlier, that he had really anticipated this trade happening sooner, especially since Hopkins became, obviously a very viable weapon there for them. Twitter debate started rolling. So many Twitter debates started rolling right off the bat about, oh man, Billy Price, is he a bigger bust than that of a John Ross? And the term bust, I used to throw that word around all the time, and it was easy to throw it around until you actually start running into some of these players and you start to know them. And then it's like, you know what? Got to be careful with the phrases you use. But I don't know if I look at Billy Price as a bust, Kev, because sometimes I do think that good organizations pick good players, and then bad organizations pick good players, and the perception is that they ruin them. I can't call Billy Price what's the definition of a bust for you? Because I do think that the term bust cannot just be solely on the shoulders of the player, that the team has to take a responsibility for it as well.
Right.
Because sometimes that's a player labeled thing and not a team labeled thing. And no, I'm not trying to phrase it as it's the Bengals' fault. But I don't blame the Bengals for taking Billy Price. In fact, I think it was a hell of a draft pick. Billy Price, for any team that needed a center that year, he was going to be the first center taken off the board. The Bengals got praised for taking Billy Price back in I believe that was 2018. Yeah. So 21st overall back in 2018. He played 42 games, 19 starts. I have no problem with the Bengals taking Billy Price back then, not just because he's a Buckeye. Any team that needed a center was going to take Billy Price back in 2018. There are some picks I'm critical of the Bengals on. This is not one of them. It's unfortunate this didn't work out, mainly, yes, because he's a Buckeye, and I wanted to see it work out, especially in the state of Ohio, whether it was for the Browns or the Bengals. But he's traded to the New York Giants. It didn't work out in Cincinnati. A lot of criticism being thrown his way. I still think Billy Price can turn out to be a pretty solid center in the NFL. I don't see a lot of Pro Bowls in his future. It's tough to be a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. There's not a lot of great offensive linemen in the NFL. That's why it's so difficult for teams to find good offensive linemen out there. Your takeaways as the Bengals move on from Billy Price is what? How would you label his tenure in Cincinnati? Is he a bust in your opinion?
No, he's not a bust because of this simple fact. Like you just talked about, he was going to be the first center off the board. He was rated as that by everybody. Not only that, he was a consistent All-American. He won the offensive lineman, not only in the Big Ten, but in the entire country. You know, the Remington Award winner. He won the offensive lineman of the year, his senior year coming out of Ohio State. So he was the guy. So the Bengals needed an offensive line. They picked the best guy on the board. This is something we talked about prior to the last NFL draft. We're trying to figure out what's the problem with the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. Is it the guys that they're picking, or is it the guys that are coaching them, that they're developing these guys? I was leaning on the side of the development because the number of guys that they picked in the offensive line, those were marquee guys. These were name brand guys that everybody knew about. Let's be clear, man. People don't watch the offensive line unless they're getting blown past or something like that, or something bad happens to the quarterback. Everybody looks at the offensive line. So with these guys that the Bengals were drafting, these were household names that everybody knew about. They drafted Ohio State guys. They drafted Alabama guys, but just seems like none of these guys are working out. So that's when I came to the conclusion maybe they aren't being coached up the right way. As far as Billy Price is, you know, they didn't pick up his option. So he's going to get traded. We kind of knew that already. So he's got moved to a second team. This is his opportunity. If it doesn't pan out here, he'll be in and out of the league within 5 years. And the average NFL career is only 3 years. So it's just the way it is. I don't necessarily view him as a bust. I just don't look at him as a productive NFL player. I mean, he started a few games. He played played bad, didn't work out with the Bengals, on to the next team. You look at a guy like John Ross, I don't even consider him a bust. Like, so many guys come in and out. Like, the first rounders, we always look at the first rounders like, all right, these guys are going to change the franchise. But 9 times out of 10, half of those guys aren't going to change the franchise. 9 times out of 10, those guys are going to be out of the league faster than dudes in the second round. Like, they flame out fast in the NFL. College football and NFL are two totally different worlds. And I was also looking at this. I didn't know John Ross had 10 touchdown catches as a Bengal. I didn't know he had that many. I don't remember him scoring more than 2.
Well, he had started to get on a roll, I think not 2 seasons ago. He'd started to get on a roll, and then he got injured and then missed some time, and then never was really able to recreate it coming back. I will say, if I'm going to label one or the other, John Ross, Billy Price is a bust. I'm not going to label Billy Price as a bust, mainly because of the fact that his story's not done yet. If he goes to the Giants and ends up, then that's a bust. Billy Price was also caught in the crosshairs, of course, of Marvin Lewis leaving and Zach Taylor coming in. So a lot of times coaches come in and they want to go in a new direction. Since Zach Taylor has come in, the Bengals have slowly and methodically tried to piece by piece eliminate every player that was a part of that Marvin Lewis tenure, or at least what was left of that. I mean, there was even some popular players. There were some homegrown players that they got rid of that led to a lot of question marks, whether it was Carlos Dunlap, whether it was Geno Atkins, whether it was names like that are no longer Bengals, that some could argue that they still have a lot of talent that could bring something to the table, but it was literally about starting a fresh start. This is why I don't think Zach Taylor's seat is as hot as what I would like it to be in others, is because the Bengals front office has given him complete, I don't want to say power. That's definitely not the phrase I'm going to use, but they have definitely gone 1,000,000% in the Zach Taylor direction of, okay, we're going to give you all of your players. You want them, you're getting them, as long as they make sense for the front office too, but I have the reason John Ross, and I say the same thing about Jamar Chase, is if Jamar Chase is drafted number 21 overall, not as much pressure is on him. But because he was drafted number 5 overall, that creates the pressure and it creates the perception of, if you're not a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver right off the bat, when you look at some of the other top rookie receivers over the last couple of years, that bar has been raised to where your expectation coming in is to be those guys, whether it's fair or not. John Ross to me is a bust, mainly because not something it's out of his control. For one, this is more team-based than him-based. John Ross should not have been a top 10 draft pick to begin with. There was a lot of criticism of the Bengals for taking John Ross when they did way back in 2017. He should not have been selected in the top 10 to begin with. There was a lot of criticism of the Bengals for going in that direction. John Ross, if he's picked 15th, 16th, or 17th, Kev, we don't even talk about John Ross. He's talked about because when you go in the top 10, that's why it just ups the ante as far as pressure for these players. Is it fair to him? No, but at the same time, if you're going to take all the praise of being a top 10 draft pick, on comes the ongoing pressure of living up to being a top 10 draft pick. John Ross couldn't do it. Billy Price, it's not a Buckeye homer take here. I can't put him in the bust category yet. Pick 21st overall. You not fell, but I mean, you go later in the first round. All the premier guys are going early on. So much talent in the NFL draft. It's hard to always tell what's going to end up panning out, but at the same time, you got to be smarter with your draft picks. I criticized the Bengals for their John Ross pick. I gave him a round of applause for their Billy Price pick. Billy Price was the number one center. That's the position that they desperately needed at that time. It made a ton of sense. It didn't work out. Luckily, they have an answer. Luckily, Hopkins is a guy that is going to make that transition easy. My only concern about the Bengals choosing to move on from Price is that Hopkins is a little beat up. They don't have a lot of depth to begin with.
Right.
And that's why I'm a little concerned. And because Billy Price could be played at guard too.
Right.
Not very well, but the Bengals offensive line isn't very good to begin with. So it's not like beggars can't be choosers at this point. I thought it was interesting that they moved on from him, from an offensive lineman when they don't have a lot of depth at that position right now. But nonetheless, it was going to happen at some point. I just thought the timing was kind of strange as well. I'm not a fan of them moving on from him at this moment. They don't have a lot of depth at the offensive line, and you got to be very careful. Yep. Yeah, that's my biggest thing.
I was looking back at the John Ross situation, man. Drafted number 9 overall in 17. It was really that 40 time that like skyrocketed him up the draft board, him running a 4.2, and people's eyes got big and said like, we got to have this guy on our team, because I believe this was the year after Tyreek Hill really make a splash in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is also a smaller receiver and everything like that. But the difference between Tyreek Hill and a guy like John Ross is Tyreek Hill is like thick. He's like muscular diesel. Like John Ross is a slim guy. Like he's 5'11", 185 pounds, where, Tyreek Hill is like 5'9", 206. You know what I'm saying? So he's got some girth to him and everything like that. So he's able to bounce off of those hits and everything like that. And when you have a speed guy that couldn't get separation because, hamstring issues, foot issues, you lose your speed, you're not the effective player as you used to be.
Well, that too. And I will say, I'm not defending the John Ross pick because I still didn't like. I'm just not a fan of taking wide receivers in the top 10, because if you're picking in the top 10, that means you have a lot of holes. And I don't think any team in the history of the NFL that's picking in the top 10, Kev, has ever been a wide receiver away from becoming a playoff team. So that's why I'm so critical of that. Like, I think that you got to start it. You got to prioritize. And again, I don't want to get into the Kinner's best hits, Kinner's greatest hits of why you shouldn't take a wide receiver in the top 10, but that's mainly why. I would be saying that about the Browns or any team. If you're picking in the top 10, you're picking in the top 10 for a reason. You have a lot of holes that you need to fill. You got to prioritize those holes, and wide receivers should never be at the top of that priority list as far as that goes. Now, if you want to look at the big picture, at that time, A.J. Green was still A.J. Green. And the idea of putting a guy that can open up the field like that with A.J. Green, I mean, now that the defense would have to pay attention to a speed guy like John Ross, A.J. Green was still Pro Bowl A.J. Green at that time. That's where they were enamored with that idea of being able to utilize his speed. But obviously, it just didn't end up working out. The other problem I have, too, if you look back at that draft, here's some of the names. I mean, they ended up getting Joe Burrow. So all of this, you can overlook it as long as Joe Burrow continues on the path that he's on to be, one of the best quarterbacks in the league moving forward. But, you had Deshaun Watson, who was picked after. You had Patrick Mahomes, who was picked after John Ross. That's why. You're probably wondering, if you're just tuning in, why the hell are we talking about John Ross? I just saw a Twitter debate that just got out of hand of, about an hour before the show when this was announced, calling Billy Price a bust. And I was like, I don't know if he's a bust. It didn't work out. You're picked number 21 number 21 overall in the first round back in 18. Any team was going to take him. John Ross was a forced pick. I didn't like the idea of taking a wide receiver back then. So that's why I would say he was more of a bust than Billy Price. But 518-1410, 518-1410. We'll take your calls. Billy Price, thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you like the move of the Bengals to move on from him? Chris on Facebook says, didn't the Bengals make the playoffs 4 years in a row after A.J. Green was drafted? Yeah, I don't know what Chris, what do you... Yes, but what are you referring to? Are you saying, because where they selected him in there? So saying that he was there, fair enough. That kind of goes against it.
But
Chris,
AJ
fair enough.
Green,
I won't argue with you on that
A.J. Green was a generational receiver.
But people are coming at me saying so is Jamar Chase. So, but okay, I think when the Bengals got A.J. Green, though, they weren't as far off as what they are now, which is why I was so against them taking Jamar Chase at the time.
They had defense then, for sure.
Which they don't have. Like, that's the thing. There's so many. They have more holes now than they did at the time that they got AJ Green. Chris, usually I go at you, but you bring up a good point. That is a good point. I just think that the roster, the Bengals were, when they got John Ross, they were closer to hitting the start of the rebuild button than they were, trying to be a pick or two away. So he was the fourth pick. So,
well, I guess I can Google it, but
AJ Green was the fourth pick. So.
AJ Green, but in that draft, they got Dalton in the second round, right? Wasn't that the same draft?
From TCU, I believe. I don't know. Did they come in the same one?
I think they did.
Chris, jump in on that too. I think they came in the same draft. Keith Tolliver says, just seems like he's been in college forever is all I was saying. Who is he talking about? I got to read through the history of these to be able to put it on Chris was against drafting Jamar Chase at the same time. Okay. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. I don't mind the Bengals. To sum up, I don't mind the Bengals moving on from Billy Price. They have a better option. They have a better center. My only concern is you're not very deep at offensive line to begin with. So moving on from a guy that at least has experience. I know he's only played in 42 games. He started 19. He could play guard. He could play center. He's not the best. I get that. But beggars can't be choosers. They don't have a lot of options. I would not have moved on from him at this time is all I'm saying. But we shall see.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
AJ went number 4 in the first round, and then they drafted Dalton in the second round.
Yeah, Jake and Chris coming in saying, yeah, they both went in together. Guys, thank you on that. But 518-1410, 518-1410. Do you like the Bengals moving on from Billy Price? Disappointed that it didn't work out. I would only be disappointed if they didn't have Hopkins. I think Hopkins is better than Billy Price. That's not a hot take. That's common sense. Every Bengals fan, doesn't happen often, would agree with that. Like I said, though, they don't have a lot of depth. I'm not a big fan of that idea of moving on from him now, but it was only a matter of time before they did that. All right, so Vegas Insiders has Ohio State's win total at 11, Kev. So coming up on the other side, we're going to dive into that. 12 games of the regular season coming up for Ohio State. Every year we predict the Buckeyes to go undefeated, rightfully so. However, Vegas Insiders, they say there's a loss floating around in that Buckeye schedule, and Ohio State kicks off the season this Thursday night at Minnesota. I don't think that loss is hiding Thursday night in Minnesota, but it could be. Will it? We'll get to that coming up. It's kickoff week for the Buckeyes right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio. Vegas Insiders, again, has Ohio State, their win total at 11. There's a loss hidden in there somewhere. Where is that loss? We'll talk about that when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 83. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a low near 66. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 78. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Start fall with everything to do business better during Dell Technologies Labor Day event. Save up to 45% on select business PCs with Windows 10 Pro. Power your workday with savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories, plus free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Labor Day event.
You wanted the best? Well, you got the best. The hottest band in the world. Cheers.
Kiss. The end of the road tour. One last kiss. This Thursday, White State's Nutter Center. Kiss on their final tour ever. On sale now at Ticketmaster.com. History will be made.
My husband Shane loved being a Columbus firefighter. When he arrived on scene and people were panicking, that's when he was at his best. But in 2019, the mental struggle became too much and Shane took his own life. Everyone needs help at some point. I encourage you to seek help if you need it by calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. For mental health insurance benefit information, visit the Ohio Department of Insurance's website, insurance.ohio.gov, or call 800-686-1526 to speak to experts who can help.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Did you know that most adults with autism are unemployed, and a major hurdle is the lack of job opportunities? That's why Autism Speaks is teaming up with Lee Container, the J. Donald and Laurel Lee Family Foundation Fund, and Delivering Jobs to create a more inclusive workforce in the U.S. Are you an HR professional, community leader, or business owner? Join us in creating a workforce where people of all abilities can contribute and thrive. To learn more, visit autismspeaks.org/employment.
Furnished by the Entertainment Industry Foundation.
The real estate market is always tough, but this market, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. When the average home stays on the market just 24 days and houses routinely go for more than the listing price, who you work with matters. Realtors have the expertise, local knowledge, and personal touch to give you a competitive advantage throughout the entire home buying process. And that's something an ordinary agent could never do. So make sure your agent is a realtor. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
Guys, stop putting your love life on hold. U.S. Pharmacy has some exciting news. If you've been wanting to try Viagra or Cialis, now's the perfect time. Call today and receive 90 little blue or little yellow pills for only $119 with free shipping. Why order some low-dose sildenafil from one of those subscription services when we can give you what you want now? Call 800-990-6271 and we'll rush your order discreetly packaged to your door. Been thinking about trying Viagra or Cialis? Call U.S. Pharmacy at 800-990-6271 for as little as only $119 for 90 pills. Need your package in a hurry? Call 800-990-6271 and ask about our express shipping option, and we'll rush your order to you as soon as possible. Save money on the little blue or yellow pill you've been wanting to try. Again, 800-990-6271 now. That's 800-990-6271.
Get a king bed for a queen price at Mattress Firm and save up to $500 on top-rated brands like Sealy and Sleepy's.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
It was a rainy and stormy week 2, but that didn't keep the Miami Valley from completing an exciting weekend of high school football action. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and myself, Justin Kinner, had the Fairmont Firebirds and the Trotwood Rams for our Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. How about the Fairmont Firebirds? First, they win the Battle of Kettering in week 1 with their win over Alter. Then they followed it up with a 35-0 shutout victory over the Trotwood Rams in week 2. Another huge night on the ground for Firebirds running back Drew Baker as he rushed for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns on 28 carries. The Firebirds are 2-0 on the season as they head into week 3 to take on Chaminade Julienne. Other week 2 scores from around the Miami Valley: the Wayne Warriors knocked off Reynoldsburg 17-15 in a tight one. Miamisburg remains undefeated at 2-0 following their 35-14 victory over Lebanon. Alter rebounded from their week 1 loss to Fairmont with a 49-0 week 2 win over Thurgood Marshall. One of the best finishes of the weekend saw the Centerville Elks squeak past Mason 15-14 thanks to a 46-yard field goal from Elks kicker Jackson Corville with 15 seconds remaining. For the complete high school football scoreboard for the entire Miami Valley, visit wingam.com.
On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER. And ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, hanging out with you here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. So Ohio State, Minnesota kick off the season coming up this Thursday night on Fox. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff. What do you think the line is? This line, I can't tell if it's concerning or not. And I know this sounds crazy. This is how spoiled we are as Buckeye fans. This line is interesting to me. What do you think the line is? It's 14. Still 2-possession line. It's not crazy. But I am used to seeing Ohio State, especially even through Big Ten. I mean, I know they're on the road. I know it's a Thursday night. I know it's a much different environment and element than playing on a Saturday at noon. But at the same time, 14, if I'm looking at that, I'm like, do I take the under on that? Still, I'll take Ohio State winning, but, the under a little bit. Like 14 is interesting to me. They're concerned about something. Maybe it's the element of surprise and not knowing much about C.J. Stroud, but it's not like we know a lot about Bryce Young in Alabama. It's not like we know it. We know more about DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson than we do the other two. Right. Let me see what Clemson's line is. Not all these games have lines out yet. Oklahoma, Tulane, that's, that's right now in question just because of the horrible hurricane that's going on right now. Let me see what we're working with here. So Oregon is 20.5. They're a 20.5-point favorite against Fresno State. So Alabama, okay, this is about right, but their opponents at least ranked. Alabama at Miami, or Alabama-Miami, I'm sorry, in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Georgia. Alabama's an 18.5-point favorite. We're spoiled by these teams. That's a low line to me. I don't know. Am I wrong on that? Or is that high? Is that high?
I think it's a bit high for the first game of the season, considering I know we're going to give Alabama the rub and everything like that, but they are losing a ton. And the guys that are coming in, these aren't guys that got playing time last year. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys from Alabama, they were playing a lot of snaps. And not just because they were in blowouts, but like they let those guys play during blowouts as well. So I think that's a little high. I would imagine somewhere around 14 and a half. But, I'm not an expert at this. As far as Ohio State is concerned, I thought it would be around 8.5, 9. The first game of the season, as we all talked about, new starting quarterback, road game, first time ever playing. Well, yeah, technically the first time ever playing in front of a crowd for C.J. Stroud and everything like that. Retooled defense, even though last year's defense was what it was, it is still a retooled defense with a lot of new starters out there. Minnesota's returning guys that were on the team before, not last year's team, but the year before. These guys are seniors now. You know what I'm saying? The team that was real good in 19, those guys are sophomores, now they're seniors. So that's why I would say, all right, I think that 14 is a little high for me.
Yeah, and Byers talks about this all the time, where you get a lot of big, the Ohio States, Penn States, and yes, even that team up north are expected to be good every year, regardless of recycling classes. Like those programs they're just expected to. Then you got those middle programs in the Big Ten that they're going to be cyclical. They're going to be once every 4 years, and usually Iowa fits that mold. I think Minnesota now with the coach that they have is going to be in that mold too, where once every 4 years you're going to have a pretty dangerous team.
Right.
Due to your veteran experience, where you're still not as talented as the Ohio States and the Penn States and the Wisconsins, but your experienced players, you have a deep roster, you have an experienced roster. That's going to close the gap a bit. Not more talented, but that experience alone. And Minnesota playing at home Thursday night, welcoming in Ohio State, they're going to be licking their chops. We saw a few years ago when Ohio State, it was J.K. Dobbins. We're going to talk about him. Unfortunate news for him in his NFL season this year. We saw Indiana welcome in Ohio State a few years ago. Very similar situation. It was J.K. Dobbins' debut for that game. I remember he had a humongous game on the ground, but Indiana played them tough for the first half. It was an ugly first half.
Yeah.
I think they only had a 1 point, or not 1 point, but one touchdown or one score in that first half. And then they just totally, blew the doors off of them in the second half. That could be what we're looking at this coming up Thursday, where it's a little bit of a slow start for Ohio State. But then again, we said the same thing, 2 years ago about Justin Fields. I remember being at that game for Florida Atlantic. Didn't expect Florida Atlantic to really challenge Ohio State, but I thought it would be a little bit of an ease into the progression of the offense. And it was 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. I mean, 28-3, I think it was. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is, Justin Fields had 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter in his debut. Is C.J. Stroud Justin Fields? We don't know. Bottom line is, we're hoping he can pick up where he left off. And we're at the point now where I'm past that whole thing of, well, you don't just replace great quarterbacks like that. In college, you kind of do. You know, the NFL, you lose a Peyton Manning, you lose a Tom Brady, you don't replace him. It takes time to replace him. It takes a few years to kind of shake off the cobwebs a little bit to head in that new direction. In college, you don't get that benefit of the doubt, right? Like, especially, I mean, Alabama, there are great storylines of, you know, going from obviously Hurts to Tua now into this situation, you know, Mac Jones last year. Yeah, that kind of goes out the window, whether it's a fair criticism or not. CJ Stroud, the pressure is going to be huge on his shoulders. He does not get to benefit from I'm a first-year starter. Well, Haskins could have said the same thing, nearly won a Heisman. Fields could have said the same thing, was in the Heisman conversations both years. So unfortunately for CJ Stroud, you're a victim of your program's own success. I know the easy thing is to say, well, we got to be patient with him. He's a first-year starter. I'm not as patient, Kev, mainly because our program has taught us not to be patient. Our program has taught us that these dudes could play. They're ready to play. They're well coached. Not to say that if he's not, that he's not well coached. There could be a human element involved here. We're used to Ohio State recruiting and landing guys that aren't human. They're super athletic. They're beyond, you know what I mean? It's not a knock against CJ Stroud. My concern is that what happens when Ohio State that happens to them, where their quarterback is still good, but not great because he's being eased into the situation. Unfortunately, for teams like Alabama and Clemson and others, you're expected to be great. There is no being eased into it. The best thing that could have happened to DJ Uiagalelei last year was the fact that Trevor Lawrence, you know, I don't want to say had COVID, and that's a good thing for him, but he got thrown out into the spotlight.
Right.
It's not as pressure-filled for him this year as what it was a year ago, and I think that's going to help him and give him the edge over Bryce Young and, of course, C.J. Stroud at Ohio State.
Yeah, college football definitely does have a plug-and-play element to it. You know, we talk about this with Alabama and my feelings about Tua and, you know, Mac Jones. It's kind of like, is it you or is it all the talent around you? You know, we can go back to the Ken Dorsey days of him playing in Miami. Like, oh, man, he's won X amount of games in a row. Well, you know what? You got Andre Johnson. You got Kellen Winslow II. You got Willis McGahee. You got Frank Gore. You got Clinton Portis. The list goes on and on and on about the amount of talent that's around you, and you're almost basically playing the point guard position, just getting the ball out quick and letting the athletes be athletes. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I would love to be in that position. I mean, shoot, if Ohio State was in that position, they might be in that position. I hope they're in that position where it's just like, hey, man, it almost doesn't matter who you plug in. And that's kind of been my point about, you know, other quarterbacks about Ohio State. You have been able to plug those guys in. I mean, we can look back, you know, about JT Barrett. JT Barrett isn't the guy that's in the NFL, but, you know, his talent was matched, and the talent around him, you were still able to win a ton of games and win them in blowout fashion. So if you just go look at scores and everything like that, you would say, oh, man, Ohio State's blowing them out with JT. Ohio State's blowing them out with Dwayne Haskins. Ohio State's blowing them out with Justin Fields. Like, so it does have that element of a plug-and-play type of situation because all three of those quarterbacks are totally different. Totally different. Like, JT Barrett was more of a run threat. Then you got Haskins, traditional passer. Now you have Justin Fields, the new wave of a quarterback who can throw passes and run the ball. So what are you going to be, CJ Stroud? Are you a new and improved, all three of those guys combined into one? We don't know. We're going to find out on Thursday night. But that's why people have that feeling about a plug-and-play element. You go back to the last four quarterbacks at Ohio State, and we won games, and we blew people out. I mean, we can go back to Braxton Miller as well. You know what I'm saying? So it gives you that plug-and-play element.
So, and you bring up good points on this, too, because you're not saying, I mean, so when we say, I hear people say all the time, well, it's easy to be the quarterback at Ohio State or Alabama or Clemson because of all the talent. And I think that's a realistic argument to make. But at the same time, those same programs have taught us that we can have talented quarterbacks, but it's the elite quarterbacks that make a difference. Kelly Bryant was a very good quarterback. I know that after he left Clemson, it didn't get we didn't even hear from him after that. But Kelly Bryant was very good for Clemson. He got him to a playoff. He was still undefeated when he got replaced by Trevor Lawrence. You look at Jalen Hurts, a very good quarterback at Alabama, and they still had to go to Tua to take him to that next level. JT Barrett, a historically great quarterback for Ohio State, set a bunch of Big Ten records as well. But you put Cardale Jones in with that arm, and it took Ohio State's offense to a whole other level. So yes, anyone that's playing quarterback at Clemson, Ohio State, or Alabama and so forth, you know that they're good, but there still could always be better options. And right now we're trying to find out, is CJ Stroud, is he more of that JT Barrett guy that you know can get it done? Is he more of that Kelly Bryant guy that you know can get the job done? Is he more of that Jalen Hurts with Alabama at that time? You know who can get it done, but maybe be a tick or two short of being that elite level quarterback to get them to that next level. So there's nothing wrong with being JT Barrett. There's nothing wrong with being Kelly Bryant. There's nothing wrong with being Jalen Hurts. But what Ohio State needs to not just get to the playoff or win a title, whether it's this year or next, they need that Justin Fields caliber talent. They need that Tua talent. They need that Trevor Lawrence talent. And that's what we're trying to find out. Hell, even Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones picked up right where Tua left off. People keep saying, oh, well, Mac Jones is only good because of all that talent around him. But we've seen talented teams that quarterbacks still came up just a hair short. And it's the great ones that are able to take that talent and maximize it. We're going to find out very quickly what CJ Stroud could do. Because unfortunately, he's also not going to get the benefit of the doubt because he has one of the best wide receiving cores in all of football.
For sure.
So it's not like we could say, well, he's young. He's still learning the offense. He was here last year. He's been the guy, even though without being named the guy till recently, he's been the guy. I mean, looked at and perceived as the guy for quite some time now. He's had time to play with these receivers. We didn't get to see him as much last year as what we wanted.
Right.
I thought we would see a lot of him last year. I thought Ohio State would be up big. You'd get to see, against Indiana in a lot of games. I thought we'd see CJ Stroud. Ohio State played a lot of tough games because of COVID, impacting games, guys being out, just not really being in sync. The defense was not as good as what we had hoped for last year as well. Right. That also hurt CJ Stroud. So we'll see. I'm just curious who CJ Stroud is. We know he's talented. You don't go to Ohio State if you're not talented. But is he JT Barrett, that a guy that can get it done but still have his shortcomings? Or is he going to be the Dwayne Haskins? Is he going to be the Justin Fields? Is he going to be the guy that just totally is why that offense is rolling? That's what I'm curious to see.
Bigger question mark, the defense or CJ Stroud?
Oh, the defense. I don't know. Where's the defense improvement coming from?
New players.
But the new play, but that to me is more of a question mark. CJ Stroud's at least experienced and has been around, maybe not starting experience. Well, what do you think though?
Defense. I believe in Coach Day's ability to scheme it up. I believe that he can scheme up guys like this.
Why couldn't he go last year?
What?
Defense.
No, talking about for CJ Stroud.
Oh, kudos. Okay, we're good.
Talking about Coach Day's ability to scheme up wide open plays and call the right play at the right time and all that good stuff that coaches do. A lot of things that, go on in the NFL with what's my guy down at New Orleans?
Sorry, Sean Payton.
Sean Payton. Like I believe in those type of coaches that can scheme open guys just off of just their brain power alone. As far as the defense is concerned, there's so many question marks. There's so many question marks. I mean, you talk about being spoiled from the quarterback position, but Ohio State's been spoiled by the defensive line position. And I know the pop-out names are obviously the Bosa brothers and then Chase Young and things of that nature. But, the guys like Robert Landers, like they were huge for that defense as well. And those impact players along the defensive line really weren't there. They're good guys up there. Zach Harrison, we're a big-time recruit. Are you going to turn into the Chase Young that we need you to be, that guy off the edge? Tariq Smith from my high school, are you going to turn it to that guy off the edge, or are you just going to continue to be a good, solid player? Like, there's nothing wrong with being a good, solid player, but can't have all good, solid players up there. We need one guy to be dominant. So you, on the other side that are a good, solid player, you can work one-on-one because they're getting double teamed. You know what I mean? So we need that. And then, my goodness, the linebackers. Like,
oh yeah,
the linebacker play, man. The linebacker play last year was dreadful, and that's just like my biggest fear about this defense this year. We have guys that have been in the program for years, like Dallas Gant. You have Taraja Mitchell. Like, they've been in the program for years, and I respect those guys for not bailing and transferring and everything like that. They stuck with the program, waited their turn and everything like that. But my biggest concern would be, all right, if you weren't able to wrestle one of those spots away from one of those other upperclassmen based off of your skill and your talent, is it just now you're the guy in the spot because you're the older guy, or are you truly in that spot because you've earned it and you're going to be that impact player? We need an impact player at every level of the defense. We talked about this last year with the Browns. As bad as the Browns defense was, they had an impact player at every level. And that's what Ohio State needs. They need impact players at every level. Do they have an impact player at the defensive line right now? I don't think so.
They have names.
They have names. They have names with a cool stars.
Names disappear after week 1.
Yeah.
Because the performance has to match the name and the expectations. Like, I don't care how many chat boards are out there to prop up the names of these guys. If they're not showing up on Saturdays, or in this case, Thursday night, those, all of a sudden the names start to dwindle a bit. We have yet to come across a situation that we've been proven otherwise. So who are we to question this? But the defensive side, we have the right to question because we went so long without having to worry about one defensive class to the next. Last year was concerning. That offense was good enough to win a national. That offense was as good as Alabama's and others. That defense is what cost them, a chance to win a national championship. The offense got him there. The defense kept him out. And I know the offense didn't score a ton, but Trey Sermon going out early, the offensive line being a little banged up, COVID having an impact there.
Mm-hmm.
The better team won the national championship last year, no doubt about it. But I don't think that score was a representation of the actual gap between Alabama and Ohio State, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. I just think, man, this defense, man, like, I don't even this is sad that I'm even saying this, and hopefully my brother's not listening to this because he'll call and kill me. I don't even need them to be the silver bullet defense, man. I just need y'all to be average.
Oh, you sound like
I don't even
sound like
that.
the Bengals fans at their offensive line.
I don't even need that. I'll settle for average defense this year because last year's defense was just not up to snuff. Obviously, I would love for them to be the good silver bullet defense. That was the one that we went to the playoff with, that we lost the game to with Clemson. I would love that defense to be on the field, but I don't know if there's that much talent on the team defensively to be that type of defense. You had 3 first-rounders on that defense. You had Okudah, you had Damon Arnett, and you had Chase Young on that defense, all going the first round. So not to mention guys that went in later rounds. So it's just like, man, do we have that amount of talent? Are these guys, I mean, I know there's stars in front of their name, the precious little star rankings and everything like that I despise to the core because I'm a show me type of person. Well, you got these stars. Show me why you got the stars, man.
I know the stars are show me, but at the same time, the starting point is getting the stars.
Right.
Because there's a direct correlation between the teams that make the playoffs and win championships with the totals. I tell it to Byers all the time. He hates the star system. I said, I know you can hate it, but you can't deny. You can't sit there and say, well, I don't care about star. Well, you kind of at least have to have the base of the stars and what you're doing with it after. It's kind of like in the NFL. We talked about it earlier, with who you draft. If you're drafting players that every other team would draft if they were in the situation you were in, I can't fault you if that player doesn't pan out, which is why I was adamant that the Bengals needed to take Penei Sewell, because if Penei Sewell didn't pan out, it was, well, you can't fault them for taking the player that every single team that needed an offensive lineman would have taken, to where now if you take somebody else and Jamar Chase doesn't work out, now you're open to criticism. So same thing in college. It's, well, at the very least, you got to take the players that every other team would be drooling over. Right. And then obviously it's what you do with them that's going to matter at the same time. But you can't get to the playoff if you're not a star team. But also it sucks when your teams like Michigan and others who get some of the star players and then don't develop them. And then there you go. Which Michigan is interesting. They do send players to the NFL, which is why when I'm watching draft night, I'm like, they're bragging about Michigan this, Michigan that. And I'm like, that to me is big picture underachieving at its finest right there. Can't brag about all the great players you're putting in the NFL, but you can't win with them against college talent. That's what fascinates me about that program. But hey, they're the epitome of disconnect. At the very least, we just need to, win enough games to remain interesting, I guess. I don't know. So a lot of big games in college football this coming up weekend. There's a big Pac-12 game that I'm really intrigued by. There's a big ACC versus SEC matchup coming up on Saturday night. Pretty pumped for that one. We'll get to that coming up. Ohio State. So the Vegas Insiders has their win total odds at 11, starting at 11. Curious about where that loss is. 12 games in the regular season. Where do they anticipate that loss?
Ain't no loss, baby.
So ESPN, their experts all put out their record projections for all the Big Ten teams, and not one has Ohio State going undefeated. I found that interesting. We'll talk about that when we come back. Where's that potential loss for Ohio State? Where's it trapped in? We'll get to that next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
I love my Charmin Super Mega Frozen. goes. Last long, it's TP goes, yeah. Charmin's got 6 rows in one. Lasts forever on my buns. Only super mega when I'm cleaning. Charmin's got my booty believing.
Charmin Super Mega Roll is 6 regular rolls in one. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
So you think you have unlimited data?
Recalculating.
Think again. If you're on a network you can't trust, then your data is limited, and so are you. Get unlimited and save with Total Wireless. Get 4 lines with unlimited data on 5G from the network more Americans depend on, with 100 gigabytes at high speed, then 2G for just $25 a month per line.
You have arrived at your destination.
Total Wireless. Do amazing. Available at Target. 5G capable device and SIM required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See terms and conditions at totalwireless.com.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get access. Well, not anymore, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month and no contract. Plus, get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Hey, Buckeye fans, as the official wing sponsor of your Ohio State Buckeyes, Roosters is giving away 12 trips for 2 to this year's Buckeye Bowl game. Each trip comes complete with airfare, hotel, gift bag, and 2 tickets to the big game. 1 bowl prize winner chosen each week, along with other cool Roosters weekly prizes. So register every week at roosterswings.com. Roosters, a fun, casual joint, and the official wing sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Official contest rules at roosterswings.com.
Hi, I'm Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Mike Foley.
And I'm Kettering Clerk of Court Rob Scott.
We're teaming up together to expand access to justice in our community. Our Help Center provides legal information and access to legal programs free of charge.
The Help Center can't provide legal advice, but if you need information on a wide range of legal issues, check in with the Help Center at Kettering Municipal Courthouse on the 2nd and 3rd Mondays of the month at no cost to you.
I'm Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Mike Foley.
And I'm Kettering Clerk of Court Rob Scott.
Visit courthouse2u.com.
Get a king bed for a queen price at Mattress Firm and save up to $500 on top-rated brands like Sealy and Sleepy's.
The Trotwood Rams welcome in the Springfield Wildcats this Friday night at 7 p.m. for the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. Listen live at 1410 Wing AM or stream the game at wingam.com. Wildcats, Rams, Friday night at 7 p.m. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash back with you here on a Monday. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash is presented by Orion Sports Medicine. We are live on Facebook. Search The Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. You can watch the show weekdays from 3 to 6 and jump in the chat section and be a part of the show there. Plus, you can also follow along live on YouTube. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. And there you go. Doug Toby, he says, and I saw this too, he says fourth string quarterback Quinn Ewers got a $90,000 truck from Reichert Ford over in Columbus. So, hey, this is a prime example, and I saw people on social media so ticked off that the backup to the backup to the backup was getting a $90,000 truck. Folks, if you ever heard that saying, don't hate the player, hate the game, you better get used to that phrase, because that's basically what we're about to witness here as we're kind of entering murky grounds. Like, you know, 3 years from now, this will all be under control, or at least more normalized. Like right now, everything is the first percent. Like Reichert gave him this truck. They don't even know who the hell he is. I mean, Ewers could be a bust. He could be a nobody. And you gave him a $90,000 truck.
Well, it's a lease, right? It's not like they gave it to him. It's a lease job, right?
Give it a rip. What if he's bad? Your business will always be known as the business that gave the fourth string quarterback a free truck.
I think the whole team got trucks. Like,
did they?
I saw something on, I can't remember which player it was, so don't let me say it, but it was like a ton of guys up there. Everybody trucked out. Offensive linemen, trucks, Defensive lineman guys got trucks.
Well, if CJ Stroud didn't get it and this dude got it, now
he's waiting. He's waiting for the big bucks, baby.
CJ Stroud's like,
he's just waiting his time, waiting for Thursday night to come, him to put on a show, and then everybody's gonna be banging down his door. Y'all can have the short term. I'm gonna take the long term.
if he loses, Reichert's gonna call and say Stroud's paying for the gas for yours. That's the rule. Holy moly! Hit the Buckeye music. You can hit the Ohio State music a little bit. We can have a little...
I need to redo this because I can't even find it.
There's no Ohio State music on that. I think there is.
No.
Just I'll give you 5, 4. There we go. Nope.
This is a short one.
That's not Ohio State though.
Oh, that's not. That's high school football.
It is.
Give me a minute.
Which we're hoping is not the case. If it's not on there, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I thought I had it loaded on there. See a fumble already for Kinner coming out of the weekend. But
you know what? I forgot to load it.
Yeah, see, Kev's fault. I'm blaming Kev.
Don't worry. I'll find it.
There you go. All right. So Ohio State, they open up Thursday night at Minnesota. And they have Oregon in week 2, and then Tulsa week 3, Akron week 4. So actually, in your traditional college football scheduling model, what you would like to see is Tulsa and Akron weeks 1 and 2. You would like, especially for the situation that Ohio State is in. Like, let's say last year COVID wasn't a thing and you entered the season the way that you did with that high-powered offense and knowing exactly what you're going to get from Justin Fields, and there's not a whole lot of question marks. This schedule would have been fine with Justin Fields, with the run game, with the offensive, especially that offensive line. I mean, with everything that the Buckeyes had last year, this schedule fits last year's Buckeyes better than this schedule fits this year's Buckeyes, mainly because of the fact that we just don't know who CJ Stroud is. We're basing it off of trust. We're basing it off of our passion and love for the Scarlet and Gray. We're basing it off of the fact that there's no way that Ohio State would not have a solid quarterback out there. And I believe that is the case. I really don't have a lot of doubts in CJ Stroud, but I can't pop this mic and tell you, dude's going to be great.
Right.
I can't. Like, that would be irresponsible, Kevin. There's some Buckeye Homer podcasts and websites you could check out for that stuff. We have to be realistic, and realistically, the trust that Ohio State has earned from us and others to feel confident that the quarterback can go out there and do the job is warranted. And I feel like I'm confident enough that he can go out there and do the job, but to what level? I can't tell you he's going to be great. I could tell you that he's expected to be great because no one goes to Ohio State to be a quarterback. That's a bum. So there's that. But what you do on game nights that's all that matters. Your talent got you there. But what are you going to do on game nights to keep you there? That's the big question that I have. This schedule opening up on a Thursday night, on an unusual, kickoff night, that's already tough. I mean, if you have a rookie quarterback, a freshman quarterback, or a first-year quarterback, I should say, in Stroud, you would love to open up against a Tulsa or an Akron. You don't want to open up on a Thursday night on the road at Minnesota. Minnesota was very well coached, very deep, very talented. Rode the boat, exactly. I don't fear Minnesota, but this moment does make you have to question things and say, okay, can this create the element of like what Iowa was a few years ago? It was a weird mid-afternoon game under the lights, a passionate crowd on hand. The Purdue game, Purdue got a primetime game a few nights ago. Anytime that Ohio State has lost in the regular season as of late, their last regular season, the only loss that they've had in the regular season goes back to when Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma was in town. That's the last regular season loss that really could have gone either way. But every loss in the regular season since then has been because these elements have popped up that it just didn't feel like a normal game. It felt like a more passionate fan base for the other side than Ohio State. That's what I'm concerned about on Thursday. Thursday night game, 8 o'clock kickoff. The game's on Fox. It's on the road. It's at Minnesota. It's not your typical, no game day, no preparation for the day leading in. It's a school day. It's this, it's that. I'm not saying they're losing, but this is not the traditional way you want to welcome a first-year quarterback at Ohio State with all the pressure in the world. You're everybody's Super Bowl. Unfortunately for Minnesota, their season's done Thursday night. That's the only problem with the 14 playoff is that right there. This is a playoff game on Thursday night. Ohio State's season can technically be on the rocks after Thursday night. Minnesota could technically be done after Thursday night. That's why I like the 14 playoff. But these elements right here, Kev, very interesting to me. Not worried about a loss, but again, we've seen crazier things happen in similar environments.
Absolutely. And that's why college football is the best, because you do get atmospheres like this. You don't get this type of atmosphere in the NFL. Like, you get a rowdy atmosphere. You know, you have your stadiums and everything like that. You got your guys up in Buffalo, you know, the Bills Mafia and everything like that. My hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, they got the Muni lot where they get a little wild and crazy and everything like that. But that atmosphere outside the stadium really doesn't get inside the stadium like it does in college football. That atmosphere that the college kids are going to be bringing inside the stadium on Thursday night, all the Minnesota Gopher fans are going to be going crazy. They've been talking about it all summer long. Like, oh, man, I can't wait to get back to school. Oh, man, I can't wait to go to the first game of the season. Ohio State's coming to town. We're going to be doing X, Y, and Z before the game. We're going to be bringing X, Y, Z in the game. We're going to be doing this during the game. When we score a touchdown, we're going to be doing this, that, and the third. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely crazy because guess what? There were no fans last year. So all that pent-up aggression, all that pent-up rowdiness is going to come out in every game this season. Every first game of the season, every stadium is going to be rocking. And you're right. When you're bringing a freshman quarterback into that situation, no matter how many stars he had as a recruit, no matter how many MVP awards he won in his Elite 11 back in high school, that is a different environment that he's going to be going into. And it's all about how he and the offense can adapt to that environment, how Coach Day can get the guys prepared. Don't expect the Justin Fields play call. Like, he will feel confident calling, all right, man, we're going to take a shot on first down, play action, go over the top. No problem. I know you can handle it. But expect some type of QB draw, a run up the gut, just to settle the nerves for the young quarterback and everything like that. I can't wait for this game. This game is I'm more excited about this game than the Oregon game, to be perfectly honest.
Why?
Because it's on the road, baby. I love the road. Yeah.
Because it's at night. Because it's at night. The way prime time
that all summer.
The way primetime games should be played under the lights, not at noon. My goodness.
Oh man, are we gonna get off early that day?
What is Thursday? No. We are not. So Charles Tackett brings up a good point, one that I've made in the past. He said Urban was the coach in those early season losses, talking about Purdue was not an early, no, they were mid-season. That was an October loss. Iowa was an October loss. Day will have them focused. I will say this. That was my big criticism about Urban Meyer late. They were a victim of their own success where, you played in so many big games that at times it was hard. Like, Purdue and Iowa were prepping for you as if you were the biggest game of their season, and you were. Ohio State was not prepping for Oregon, they were not prepping for Iowa and Purdue that week as if that was the biggest game on their schedule. If there was ever a knock on Urban, I do believe that for me, that was the case late in his tenure at Ohio State. It was that. There were weekends where it felt like Ohio State was just not mentally sharp coming out. I don't think Urban did a great job of having them mentally focused every single week. As much as we talk about Urban we talked about this last week, I said, what is the persona of Urban Meyer? What is the perception of Urban Meyer? Who is he? Everyone talks about he's the ultimate motivator. Well, see, I never got that vibe. I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that actually what cost Ohio State games and maybe playoff appearances and championships more in Columbus during his time was that he was not the ultimate motivator. He did not have them prepared to play Iowa. He did not have them prepared to play Purdue. And I don't have a problem saying I got ripped for that, by the way. I remember I was getting killed on the boards, according to one reliable source. When I was pointing these things out, I'm like, I don't think I'm a hater for pointing out that Ohio State just did not seem motivated to come out. We would rip Alabama for them playing nobodies, but Alabama was up 28-0 on their nobodies when they played them. And Ohio State's in tough games, at least until halftime before they finally decided to play. So, Charles, I actually agree with you on that I'm not saying that Urban was a bad coach, but I don't give him as much credit for being the ultimate motivator as a lot of people did. I thought that they lost to Iowa and Purdue because they weren't motivated. They weren't mentally prepared for those games. The one thing about Ryan Day, I can't think of one game where they haven't been mentally prepared to play. And don't bring up games during COVID season because you know what? That wasn't a normal season. There's not a circumstance that any coach out there has the experience to prepare a team to play during those circumstances. The fact that they got to the playoff and got to the national championship game with everything going on last year in a season that shouldn't even have happened for them to begin with, considering how a year ago at this time things started, that I'll give Charles that. Ryan Day does bring a different feel and has this team always more motivated on game days than we usually saw from Urban Meyer at times, especially for the lesser opponents.
Yeah, for me, I think Coach Urban Meyer had, for lack of a better word, like those experienced teams, like he had trouble getting those guys up to play.
Remember that 15 season?
Yeah.
Remember they beat it was a MAC team. They beat by one possession. I think it was Southern Illinois. No, who they played? Not Southern Illinois. I got to pull that up. The 2015 season.
Yeah, after the championship.
They struggled with Hawaii. They beat a MAC team by one possession. They were never mentally focused.
I think like those teams that were like guys that were juniors and upperclassmen who had eyes set on the NFL, I think he had a hard time motivating those guys, because you look at the guys that he had like his first year at Ohio State when they went undefeated and everything like that. Those dudes were hungry. And then you look at the guys that they
Northern Illinois. Sorry,
they won
20-13. Keep going.
They won the national championship with those guys were sophomores, hungry with something to prove. But like once those guys became juniors and seniors, like they tasted glory. They got the championship. They got why they came to college, and then they saw their eyes on the NFL. So I do think that he had a little bit of difficulty motivating those guys for like the quote unquote lesser opponents, because you talk about the Iowa game, they were ready to play versus Penn State the game before. You know what I'm saying? They came to play that game, and because that was a big game. And then they couldn't follow it up the next day. And that all goes on the coach. You know, it's the coach's responsibility to get the guys ready to play.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, when they, and that was 2017. And when you look at that 2017 season when they lost to, that was the year they lost at Iowa. If you remember, this was Urban Meyer's biggest thing, was he would get them motivated to play the big teams. They beat Penn State in late October, and Penn State was the number 2 team in the country that year, and they won 39-38. That was that JT Barrett come from behind game.
Yes, sir.
I remember KB and I, we had that Sunday morning show. We had Eddie George on that morning, and Eddie George, we asked him who his Heisman favorite was at this point. He said JT Barrett is the Heisman favorite at this point, and he was. He was having a great year at that point. And then the very next game, on the road at Iowa, after just beating number 2 in the country, Penn State, is when they lose, is when, of course, they lost against, Iowa. And then you look at the next year when they lost to Purdue. They were undefeated at that point. I mean, they had just, they beat Penn State already. They had beat TCU, who was, again, that was the weird season with Ryan Day or whatever, taking over in the early goings. But then to lose 49-20, not just losing, but losing almost by 30. They're just not mentally prepared to play. I don't think that's a Ryan Day thing. So, Charles, I agree with you on that. Okay, hour number 2 coming up. Still got to get into our sympathy meter. Baez, if you're a Reds fan, no one likes Baez to begin with, former Cub, now with the Mets, but he had a couple fingers for the Mets fans. They were thumbs, at least, but it was the direction that the thumbs were pointing that became the big talking point for the former World Series champion Chicago Cubs player, of course, now with the Mets. We'll talk about that in our sympathy meter. J.K. Dobbins, his season is done before it even starts, and I'm going to defend Coach Harbaugh. Not that Coach Harbaugh, but I am going to defend a Coach Harbaugh coming up here during the sympathy meter. Plus, Kev Nash brings us over under. Still a lot to get into. Plus, we'll highlight some of the top high school results from over this past week 2 weekend. Don't go anywhere. Hour 2 of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. WING 1410 Dayton, Dayton's ESPN Radio.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get in on the action. Well, no more, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month with no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for only $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required, actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
The Labor Day savings inside the Home Depot means something different once you're back out there doing. In here, it's a Lillard White vanity. Out there, it's the half bath you fully finished. In here, it's a bag of Miracle Grow garden soil. Out there, it's a lush backyard that's worthy of company. So get back out there with store-wide savings for house-wide doing. Only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
School's out for summer, but if your business is running QuickBooks, you'll never get a break. Their manual processes, integration difficulties, and glitchy delays will leave you scrambling for the numbers you need. Failing to graduate to NetSuite will leave you stuck in summer school while your friends party.
NetSuite by Oracle is the #1 cloud financial system, no matter how big your business grows. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. Automate your processes with NetSuite and close your books in no time. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control since graduating to NetSuite. Special financing is back. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to graduate.
Head to netsuite.com/radar right now. netsuite.com/radar. netsuite.com/radar.
D-Max, home of the Duramax diesel engine, is now hiring in Moraine and Brookville. To learn more about D-Max and all current openings, go to dmaxengines.com. That's dmaxengines.com. D-Max, your engine for success.
O'Reilly. It's O Rewards Member Appreciation Month at O'Reilly Auto Parts, where you can earn double, triple, even up to 5 times O Rewards points on select purchases. Get bonus points on more than 200 items throughout the store, like wiper blades, fuel system cleaners, motor oil, and more. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Is fall your favorite season? Lowe's is definitely the place to get ready for it, especially during Labor Day. From fall garden gear to seasonal decor, they have it all at a great price.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays at 3 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Hour 2, we're off and rolling here on a Monday. So I said earlier when I started the show, I had a migraine. It did not feel good. For whatever reason, I feel fine now. So now you're going to get the old annoying Kinner.
Great.
Ohio State opens up the season this Thursday night. Just a reminder, we are Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. 1410 Wing AM, of course, with our sister station, 92.9 Jack FM as well. And we're looking forward to that. I can't believe the season's here. So we're week 3 of the high school football season, Kev. I mean, what the heck? Like, week 3. We're already heading into week 3. How about Trotwood? Like, their quarterback is good. Last name's Carpenter. He's very good. But the dude can't get any time to throw. Like, Keith and I started looking at his stats against Fairmont. They haven't scored 2 weeks in.
Oh, man.
Like, it's one thing to not be typical Trotwood, but to just be to not even be able to put points up on the board. But their offensive line, they have a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. I mean, think about what you were doing in freshman year of high school. You were on JV team preparing to play. If you were a freshman on JV team, you're pretty dang good at that point. You have freshmen, and so not making excuses, but that's the reality of it. It's a young team, but it's not the traditional Trotwood team we're used to watching, just a few years removed from winning a state championship. So, but Fairmont beat them. Fairmont beat Alter and Trotwood in back-to-back weeks. Not just beating Trotwood, but shutting out Trotwood 35-0. Trotwood's, they're in trouble. I feel bad for them to be shut out 2 weeks in a row. And then you got Springfield coming up this week. Hoofa.
Yeah, definitely a difficult season ahead for Trotwood. But you know what? Coach Graham, I believe in him, and I think he'll have them ready to go, a little bit further down the line, you know what I'm saying? Because like you talked about having freshman offensive linemen out there and everything like that, and the amount of guys that he sent to college, not only just with academics, but sending those guys off to college on scholarships and everything like that, eventually you're going to have a dip, you know what I'm saying? And unfortunately for them, this dip is happening right now, but I'm sure during Coach Graham's tenure, they're going to bounce right back to where they're supposed to be.
Oh, no, the talents. This class, it's real young right now in middle school. They just were dominant. I know middle school, but no, that's for one. They were talking about how talented that middle school class was coming up and stuff. But the problem is a lot of them are being thrown out into the fire because there's not a lot of depth there. So they're having to play probably positions a little prematurely, maybe before that they're actually ready to play these at the varsity level. So there you go. But
I mean, we know all about how important offensive line is.
They don't need to be great. They should be average. They just need an average offensive line. Another player I want to highlight. So I'm going to be on the Buckeye Roundtable show tonight, coming up at 6:00 with Paul Keels and them. Well, no, what I'm excited about is they bring us on to highlight a local player, and the player I'm highlighting tonight is a kicker. I'm all about the kickers right now. Jackson Corville, again, he's a kicker for Centerville, had 2 field goals, and again, Chris Schulp a little bit ago, and his name depends on if he's irritating me or not, so he's Schulp for right now. Chris Schulp, he talked about he had a 48-yarder. I'm getting it just from the GWalk stat side, but he had 2 field goals, at least 46 yards, including the game winner. Centerville won 15-14 over Mason. But Corville's had 3 field goals on the season, all at least 46 yards or more. And
I was watching that game. I was watching that game because my nephew, he plays for Centerville. So we were watching it on the TV, on the stream and everything like that. And it wasn't looking good. Wasn't going Centerville's way. So I was in the kitchen actually warming up some pizza as Centerville scored a touchdown. And my wife's like, oh, they scored a touchdown. I was like, they need to get this onside kick. And I'm not even watching. And she starts screaming, they got it, they got it, they got it. I was like, for real? So I come running in the living room and everything like that. They drive a little bit down the field, and they're setting up for a kick. And I'm like, a high school kicker, 40-something yards? Like, hopefully he makes it. Hopefully he makes contact. And he stroked it. That thing would have been good from 52. Like, straight up. Like, he booted that thing straight through the upright. So, respect. My hat goes off to him.
Yeah, and we were doing the Fairmont game, and Will Holt, he's their kicker. He's Fairmont's kicker. He was 2 of 3. His long was 43. I'm like, my goodness, no, and I say this all the time. That's a luxury. If you're a high school football team and you have a field goal kicker, I'm not downplaying the ability to hit an extra point, but at least you're close by. Like, those are more manageable. But we're talking about these kids, and we're talking about high schoolers in high pressure situations. All right, so the fact that when you talked about Centerville's kicker, the fact that kid lined up with the game on the line and buried it from 46 yards out. Good for him.
Crazy.
That is insane to me, and good for him. But Will Holt for for Fairmont, he was 2 of 3 with his longest being from 43. He was responsible for 9 of the 35 points when you had the extra points in there. But yeah, we always talk about quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, the skill possession players. But I wanted to make sure we got some of the kickers a little bit of love, because that's tough. That is really, really tough. A lot of really good games around the Miami Valley. Miamisburg's 2-0. Wayne, they squeaked by Reynoldsburg 17-15. So you're looking at right now at the GWalk alone, Wayne's 2-0, Northmont's 2-0, Miamisburg and Fairmont and Centerville all 2-0. That's good for them. That's pretty talented right there. Alter, they rebounded too after losing their battle of Kettering last week against Fairmont. They shut out their opponent like 49-0 or whatever it was. So that's quite the turnaround. But Fairmont's pretty solid too, by the way.
I'm sure that week of practice was real fun for the Alter Knights.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And look, and so in Fairmont too, by the way, like that style of play, it's old school. Let me pull this up too, because it was interesting when I was looking at this. So their quarterback, I think Malik Hillen's his name. He is only throwing the ball like 3 times total in the season. He's 3 or 4 for 4. A couple touchdowns.
QBR.
That's called being efficient right there. So there's that. But shout out to him as well. But yeah, congratulations to Fairmont. This week, Trotwood, Springfield coming in. That's our game of the week. And Trotwood and Jeff Graham. Look, I actually thought, again, people look at scores and right away you just throw a team out the window or whatever. But like offensively, Trotwood looked slightly better than they did in week 1. Like there's no bones about it. It's a young team. They have flaws. They're not favored to beat Springfield. Springfield's favored to win the state championship this year, as they should. But man, if you play this game tight, if you finally score, if you could say, man, we got shut out the first 2 weeks, but we put some points up on the board against a Springfield team that has Saturday talent all over it. I think it's an opportunity for that young Trotwood talent to take a step forward. So Trotwood and Springfield, our game of the week coming up. So keep that in mind. Also, we will have Keith Byers. The Keith Byers show will be on Wednesday. His show will be on West Columbia Street in Springfield from noon to 1. He'll be previewing that Springfield Trotwood game and, of course, preparing everybody for that Ohio State kickoff against Minnesota. So keep that in mind. That's coming up this week. All right. So the NFL win total, or the college football win total, has Ohio State at about 11, Kev. And I thought that was interesting because I started looking at their schedule for this upcoming season. I'm like, where is the loss? Where is Ohio State's loss in there? The thing about Ohio State and Alabama and others, We did this thing with the Bengals Browns last week where where's the game that they should win that they shouldn't, and where's the loss that they'll lose that they shouldn't. It's tough to do that in college because Ohio State, they should win every game.
Right.
They're the Ohio State University, right? Like that's the thing. Before we could even get to that Ohio State-Oregon matchup, which I think everyone's going to say that that's the most vulnerable and that they could potentially be right there. Oregon's interesting to me. This is a huge opportunity for them, but, you have UCLA out of the Pac-12 who's not playing Ohio State, but UCLA got a big win. They destroyed Hawaii. They got a big opportunity this week against LSU. Oregon is trying to make sure that they keep their name at the top. The bigger game, Kev, it's a bigger game in week 2 for Oregon than it is for Ohio State. Ohio State can lose to Oregon and still make the college football playoff. Oregon cannot lose to Ohio State and still make the college football playoff. Oregon's going to be hungry in that game. Outside of Oregon, I don't see another loss on this schedule. No one anticipates a loss. I mean, look at that Purdue and the Iowa loss from a few years ago. Right. No one anticipates a loss. But, again, it's a low-hanging, easy fruit. Oregon's going to be their biggest challenger on the year. I know Penn State's going to be tough for them as well. Michigan, just the rivalry game itself is big. Maybe not so much the opponent at this point, but Minnesota scares me on Thursday. I still think Ohio State wins this, but at the end of the day, the elements worry me more than the opponent itself coming up on Thursday night.
I think their 2 hardest games of the season are week 1 and week 2. Obviously, a team that I'm always going to keep on my radar is that team up north because obviously the rivalry game and everything like that. But those 2 first games of the year, you going on the road with a young quarterback. I understand that he has veteran weapons, veteran wide receivers, veteran tight ends, and everything like that. But himself, he's the trigger man. He's young. Making his first start on the road, that's something to worry about. And then you got Oregon, like you said, they got to win this game. They're coming in with everything. And Kevon Thibodeau, the defensive end for Oregon, top 5 pick in the NFL. Yeah, I know we have a good offensive line, but you know what? Know who else had a good offensive line and Chase Young destroyed them? Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a dude like that on the defensive end spot, he can wreck shop for any offense. So that's something to worry about. So then you go through Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, Maryland. Then you get to Indiana. We know how that Indiana game was last season, at the shoe, no less. Ohio State had a nice lead. Everything was rolling fine until it wasn't rolling fine. Michael Penix Jr. got hot with his wide receivers and had a chance for them to tie up the football game on their last drive of the game. So that's something to worry about. And then we don't know what we're going to get out of Penn State this season. Is Penn State going to be the Penn State of last season who started out 0-4, or are they going to be the Penn State who ended the season 3-0? Looking like they finally righted the ship and figured things out. So what are they going to be? I mean, Nebraska, they're in a world of hurt right now. Purdue, the guy that single-handedly beat us, he's in the NFL now, Rondale Moore, thank goodness. Then Michigan State, with everything they got going on at Michigan State, is that defense going to be lights out like they're expecting them to be lights out? They had freshmen and sophomores playing on that defensive line and secondary last year. Now those dudes are sophomores and juniors. Is that defense going to be as legit as everybody says they're going to be legit? We're going to find out. And then obviously the big game versus that team up north. For me, it's the first 2 games of the season that I'm more worried about than any other game out there. At Minnesota with Oregon.
Without knowing a ton about Minnesota, we know what potential weapons that they have. But I'm telling you right now, it's always going to be the team with the best quarterback will always scare me as far as who Ohio State's playing. And I think that team is Indiana. Mm-hmm. And we saw what Penix Jr. did to Ohio State last year. What I do find interesting is one of the more intriguing games of week 1 for college football. It's not the sexiest matchup. It's on Big Ten Network, but Indiana, number 17 in the country, on the road at Iowa. Iowa's number 18. Outside of Thursday night, I'll take. I mean, look, there's some big games this weekend. Okay, there's some big games that Alabama and Miami, not of Ohio, but Alabama and Miami. Again, it's a neutral site game. But Penn State, Wisconsin, the Big Ten showing out this week between Ohio State, Minnesota on Thursday night, and then you look at the fact that you have, of course, Penn State and Wisconsin, 19 versus 12, coming up at noon on Saturday, and then the one that I'm like, this is my favorite matchup of the weekend. Even with Georgia and Clemson playing, Indiana, Iowa interests me like no other. Because if Indiana goes on the road and gets a top 25 win in week 1, that sets, and Michael Penix shows out, which I expect him to do. Now we're talking about, and again, it's a dark horse Heisman candidate right there in Penix Jr. because he's going to have the chance. Because if Indiana is undefeated, if Indiana beats Iowa and they beat Cincinnati, who's top 10, and then they head into that Ohio State matchup later in the season, which they don't play Ohio State until
end of October.
If they're undefeated, they would have already been battle tested. Indiana would have already beaten a top 10 Cincinnati team, a top 25 Iowa team. They would have played Penn State by then, which that could be a little dicey. But if they somehow find a way to be, and they're at Penn State, that's going to be the problem. Penn State's going to, that's going to be their whiteout game. So there's that. If Indiana is undefeated. But I'm pulling for Indiana, not to beat Ohio State, but I want Indiana, and I'm torn too, by the way, because I'm pulling for Cincinnati when they face Indiana here in a few weeks. Okay, so that's where I'm torn. But I want, at the end of the day, Indiana to be undefeated heading into the shoe. Ohio State welcoming in Indiana, an undefeated top 10, because Indiana will be top 10. If you beat Iowa and you beat top 10 Cincinnati and somehow you come away with the win against Penn State, watch them lose to Michigan State the week before, though. That's the typical way the Big Ten works, by the way.
Let's put this on wax. If Indiana and Ohio State are undefeated, we're going to the game.
Fair enough.
It's going to be I got some people we can ask.
Yeah, me too. They'll still be saying how much you paying. So,
that's going to be a noon kick, right?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest games get put at noon. I mean, at least we can be home by dark. So there's that. Holy moly. But that's going to be a good one. Chat section, Keith Tolliver says, former Buckeye Tate Martell not on the depth chart at UNLV, but and hashtag once a Buckeye. I love that, by the way. Here's the thing. Tate Martell was already missing from practices early on. Like, at some point, you just got to wash your hands of the situation.
Last thing I read, he had surgery on his thumb and his pinky on his throwing hand. That's the last thing I read.
The last thing I read on him, too, was that the health issues, but also, like, disappearing from, like, just not being mentally engaged in practice and stuff. At some point, you just got to chalk it up to the dude's just not invested. And that's okay. It's not okay, but, it's okay to just acknowledge the issue and move on. Players that bounce around. I always say this, I know people are all about the transfer portal and all about going from opportunity to opportunity, but I know in my real world life, if I go to a job interview and I've had 55 different jobs from the time I'm 18 to 30, that's not a good look on a job interview. They're going to say, okay, yeah, you have the right to take whatever job you want. You have the right to move from job to job and job hop and do that, but it's not a good look. Employers aren't going to trust you if they constantly see that you are just up and relocating, up and relocating, up and relocating. There comes a certain point where, although you have the freedom to transfer from whatever school you want to another school, it's still not a good look when schools are sitting down looking at you coming in saying, okay, well, there's a reason you didn't work at Ohio State. There's a reason you didn't work at Miami. You're not going to work here. That has to be, put into consideration as far as that. Oh, by the way, Shaw says that Indiana will be 5-7. So there's that. So that's how you know they're going to be really good this year.
We'll see.
Are you an Indiana guy?
I don't know about Indiana this year. I can be completely honest. I think that Iowa's going to be that team this year.
Oh, you and Shaw agree, because Shaw said, I'm high on Iowa, very high. And I said, I agree, you're high. So there's that.
Even though I'm not a big Kirk Ferentz fan, I think their team's going to be pretty good this year. I would roll with Iowa to come out the Big Ten West if I was a betting man.
My thing is this. Indiana's offense, that's why they're going to come out of that Big Ten right there on that side until Ohio State at least. Because in the Big Ten, it's one thing if you have a good defense, but you could win in that conference without good defense. The better offenses always seem to win. That's why Ohio State last year came out on top, because they had the better offense. Like, their defense was not good. Ohio State's defense was atrocious last year. Your best player, who, by the way, was traded to the Patriots, your best defensive player last year, opposing quarterbacks were targeting him. They were throwing at him. Sean Wade, they weren't afraid of Sean Wade. They weren't trying to throw away from, they were throwing at him. And Ohio State still got to the national championship game. Michael Penix last year, until he goes out with that injury, Indiana was one of the sexiest offensive teams in the Big Ten. The second flashiest offensive team in the Big Ten is going to make some noise. And I believe that team is Indiana more than anybody else. We could brag about the defenses, but that's Big Ten football. Defenses exist all over the place in the Big Ten. But at the same time, bad offenses exist all over the place in the Big Ten. So is it a good defensive conference, or is it a lack of not having explosive offenses? Indiana put that to test last year, and I think they'll put that to test this year. So there you go. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Let's play the sympathy meter. I want to defend John Harbaugh. Sorry, not Jim. Jimbo, you're on your own. John Harbaugh is getting criticized for doing something that every coach in the NFL just did and wrapped up over the weekend. We'll talk about that in our sympathy meter. Plus, Kev Nash brings us over under. That's all coming up right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 83. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a low near 66. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 78. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Let's be real. Mopping is a hassle. You have to fill the bucket, pushing a wet, heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer Wet Jet. With Swiffer Wet Jet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer Wet Jet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
The real estate market is always tough, but this market, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. When the average home stays on the market just 24 days and houses routinely go for more than the listing price, who you work with matters. Realtors have the expertise, local knowledge, and personal touch to give you a competitive advantage throughout the entire home buying process. And that's something an ordinary agent could never do. So make sure your agent is a realtor. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
Hey, welcome to Everything Outdoors. Can I help you find anything?
Hey, yeah. Can you point us to the camping gear?
Sure, aisle 2.
Snowboarding? Just bought a new Nissan Pathfinder. It's got intelligent 4x4, and we want to hit the backcountry.
Aisle 18.
And the boats?
Are you sure you can do all this?
Up to 6,000 pounds towing, we're good to go. Oh, where's the scuba gear?
Return to rugged in the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. Available intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capability varies by configuration. See Nissan Owner's Manual for proper use.
What's stopping you from getting the original Peloton bike?
I need flexibility with my workouts.
Choose from thousands of classes available 24/7.
It's hard for me to stay motivated.
Programs, artist series, and badges keep you reaching new goals.
45-minute bike boot camp, 30-minute hit ride.
My 45-minute hip-hop ride. You get all that? For how much?
The original Peloton bike is now at its best price ever. Get game-changing cardio at a new game-changing price. The original Peloton bike, now $400 less. Learn more at onepeloton.com.
At the American Lung Association, we're fighting for a day when we can all breathe easier. We're fighting for clear skies over every city and healthy lungs throughout the country. We're fighting to free millions of Americans from the addictive grip of tobacco and the devastating effects of lung disease. The American Lung Association isn't just fighting for air, we're fighting for all the things that make it worth breathing, and we can use your help. See what you can do at fightingforair.org.
Introducing Mohawk Fast Tile, a patented floating floor porcelain tile system you can install and grout in just a day. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Place underlayment, click tiles together, and grout. There's no demo, no mortar, and no mess. Just a beautiful, durable porcelain tile floor that is waterproof, stain-proof, dent-proof, and scratch-resistant. Mohawk Fast Tile, available at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
And now a small business setback, set to smooth jazz.
It's late. You're driving in the rain with only one thing on your mind. The deer about to total your HVAC van. But with Progressive's 30-plus customizable coverage options, you're covered. The rest is just saxophone.
When running your small business gets rough, Progressive Commercial is there to smooth it out. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Twinkly sound.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage and discounts not available for all vehicles or states. Policy terms and conditions apply.
Your goals, your future, your dreams. These things are none of our business. Your symptoms, your work from home sweatpants, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m., that's really none of our business. Because your life is private. And unlike other tech companies, we think your internet should be too. Oh, who's that from? That's none of our business either. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
King Crimson live. The Music is Our Friend Tour. September 2nd at Broy's Music Center at the Heights. With special guests, the Zappa Band. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com and the Rose Music Center box office. Two legendary bands at the height of their power. King Crimson, together with the Zappa Band.
Contractors and homeowners, do you have a project to do? Knock one out of the park this year and rent your equipment from Arts Rental Equipment. With over 50 years experience, Arts Rental has the best selection of equipment, including aerial lifts, skid steers, excavators, generators, saws, lawn and landscaping equipment, and so much more. Arts Rental can help you get the job done. Plus, Arts delivers too. For your next job or project, big or small, work smart. Rent from Arts.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, then get ready to pay up. The IRS has giant private collection agencies actively tracking down folks who owe the IRS. So if you think dodging them was stressful in the past, it's going to get a whole lot tougher. Optima Tax Relief has this advice. Don't wait. Solve your tax problems now before it's too late. Optima Tax Relief works to stop the demand letters, stop the aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS collectors from targeting you. Ask Optima about the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, and nobody knows this program better than they do. Optima is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and they get results, having resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Get a fresh start. Call today for your free consultation.
Call 800-364-9188. 800-364-9188. 800-364-9188.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hey everybody, it's Stephen A. Smith, and everyone knows my feelings on Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kenner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
It's the Justin Kenner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Byers Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kenner, Kev Nash with you on 1410 ESPN Radio. Shout out to Kettering Fairmont, the Fairmont Firebirds and their athletics department again for hosting 1410 ESPN Radio this Friday as we brought you our Glacier Softwater High School football game of the week. 35-0 shutout win for Fairmont over Trotwood. And we appreciate all the schools that let us go call the games from their booth. Again, right now, look, there's a lot of people that request to sit in those boxes, whether they're bringing a high school sports podcast or to call the games or what have you. So when the ADs let us take a spot in the box, I just want to say we appreciate that. So shout out to Mr. Weaver and, of course, the Fairmont Athletics Department. And shout out to Trotwood's Athletic Department for letting us come and jump in this Friday night as they welcome in Springfield. So we're looking forward to that one as well. Some other scores around the Miami Valley. The Wayne Warriors knocked off Reynoldsburg 17-15 in a tight one. Miamisburg, they remain undefeated at 2-0 following their 35-14 win over Lebanon. Alta rebounded from their week 1 loss at Fairmont with a 49-0 week 2 win over Thurgood Marshall. And of course, the one you talked about earlier, Kev, one of the best finishes of the weekend saw the Centerville Elks squeak past Mason 15-14. Thanks to a 46-yard field goal from Elks kicker Jackson Corville with 15 seconds remaining. A very exciting finish there. Lots of big games, lots of fun results from over the weekend. For the complete high school football scoreboard for the entire Miami Valley, you can visit wingam.com. Go and check that out. You can also take a look at some of the big games coming up this weekend as well. All right, Justin Kenner, Kev Nash with you here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend, but let's play the sympathy meter game. It's been a while since we've done that. So, Kev Nash, let me make sure we have the little banner up for the sympathy meter. I want to make sure we're off. Oh, there it is. The sympathy meter. I want to start things off with Javier Baez among the New York Mets to take a shot at the booing fans with a thumbs down celebration. He gave the fans a couple fingers, not the funny ones, the thumbs, but not thumbs up. He gave them a thumbs down. Now, I'm torn on this, to be honest with you. Javier Baez has just been getting destroyed in the media today, and rightfully so. I'm not a big fan of his approach to this. It is part of sports. I was throwing a tantrum about a month and a half ago because Eugenio Suarez at Great American Ballpark struck out for the third time in a game, and fans were just showering him with boos. Mm-hmm. And that ticked me off, mainly because I'm a homer, and Suarez is one of my favorite Reds. At this point, though, it's not a slump. It's just kind of who he is. He's not a very good baseball player right now. But at that time, I was like, how are you as fans, how do you think booing helps the situation? Because baseball is all sports, it's a mental thing. In fact, everything in life is mental with how you approach it. I mean, your performance is based on how you feel about yourself, the effort that you're giving, and everything like that. So I don't want to make it only athletes face this, but at the same time, we as fans have an impact on how players perform and how teams perform. There's a reason that home field and home court and home ice advantage exists, and we talk about the difficulties of going to play on the road. Why is it difficult to play on the road? Oh, yeah, because it's a tough environment. The fans are booing you. They're telling you suck. They're cussing at you. They're making fun of your mom and your kids and your personal life, right? It's tough. Well, what happens when your home crowd becomes your road environment? Mm-hmm. So that's why I got so defensive of Eugenio Suarez a while back, because I'm like, we as a team need him. The Reds need Eugenio Suarez to step up and start swinging the bat. But, there's something going on between his ears that's really keeping him from being able to perform at a high level that we've become accustomed to watching him play. So I would get upset saying that we as fans are not doing our part, because if you think that us booing him is going to make him all of a sudden just wake up and play better, you have another thing coming. But then I get to this, and this is where I'm pointing out my own hypocrisy. I'm fair here. Javier Baez says that he is going to boo the fans and put the thumbs down every time that they cheer him, because he says, when you boo us when we're playing bad, you don't get to cheer us when we play well, which is such a weird thing. So Javier Baez told the media that he wanted the fans to know that if they're going to boo him when they're playing well, that they're not allowed to cheer him when he's doing well. So now whenever him and a couple of teammates, whenever they play bad, whenever they play well and they get a base hit or a home run, they start putting thumbs down to the fans. Now, like I said, I'm a hypocrite on this, because I just got done saying that I think that the fans are wrong for booing their own players, because if you think that you're all of a sudden that your booing is going to make players snap out of it and start playing better, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. A lot of the times, struggles in sports, and hell, even in our everyday lives, Kevin, a lot of struggles that we have, it's all mental based. It's we're always our worst enemies. We're always our biggest critics. We're always telling ourselves how bad we are at what we do, and that's tough to overcome. So when you have a stadium full of people telling you what you already think about yourself, it's hard to get out of that slump. But in this situation, I don't have a problem with players thinking this. I guess the problem I have is with him actually going to the consumers and telling them, yeah, you suck. Because I'm always of the mindset that I hated when I worked in the restaurant business, and they would tell you, well, the customer's always right, or any kind of customer service job I had, the customer's always right. I'm a firm believer that is not the case. The customer is not always right. All right, you order that plate, you read the menu, and the food comes the way it's described in the menu, and you still don't like it, and you yell at the waiter or waitress. The customer's not always right. You're not right for how you talk to people. You're right for maybe not liking something, and you're right for maybe saying, hey, I don't really want to pay for this. I took a bite or two, and it's just not what I wanted. What I wanted. I'll just take something else. That's fine. But the customer's not always right in how they go about it. The fans aren't always right in how they go about it, which is why we've talked about, yelling racial slurs and cussing and throwing stuff at players. Like, the game handles that. But I do believe booing is a part of it. If I could cheer you, I could boo you. If I could say you're great, I could say you're not playing great. And I think there's give and take. As long as fans aren't yelling racial slurs or throwing stuff at you or coming out onto the field or yelling personal things or swearing or stuff like that, booing, if you can't, and Baez comes from the most passionate fan base in baseball, the Chicago Cubs, who cheers you. You could light an orphanage on fire on Christmas Eve and they'll cheer you. That's just how loyal. That's a weird analogy, but you see my point. That fan base loves their players no matter what they do. The New York fan base, not so much. The New York fan base, you got to play well or they're going to let you know about it. And clearly he is showing he's not capable of playing in that market. So I do have a problem with not what he thinks, but actually telling the fans, yeah, you don't get to cheer me. You don't get to cheer me. When I play well, you don't get to cheer me. And because you booed me. But here's a quote from Baez that I kind of agree with, Kev. if we win together, then we got to lose together, and the fans are a really big part of it. I am so against Javier Baez and everything he has said except for that, because I do believe as fans, we are a part of the team's success and a part of their failures as well.
For sure.
And I do respect when fans finally get to the point to where they stop saying, you know what, this isn't right. You're in our way of accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So I'm fine with that. Then there's fan bases like the Bengals fan base who cheers their team no matter what boneheaded decisions that they make. I have a problem with those delusional fans who think that their team is making the right decision at every time they turn around. That's the problem I have with Bengals fans. I have no problem with fans holding their team accountable. I have no problem with the fans booing Javier Baez, but I do agree with him on this, Kev. If we win together, then we got to lose together, and the fans are really a big part of it. He's getting destroyed right now. Javier Baez is. Using the sympathy meter scale of 1 to 10, how much sympathy do you have for Javier Baez? And I saw you do the thumbs down a little bit ago.
I really don't have any sympathy for him at all. I'm going to go low. I'm going to sympathy like at a 3. Because it's as simple as this, man. Fans, we have every right in the world to boo you if you're not playing well. It's as simple as that. Like, that's the one thing that fans can do. They can't talk about your kids. They can't talk about your wife, but they can boo you. We have the right to boo you. Like, that's the whole thing. If you're not playing well, we get to boo you. Fans pay a lot of money to park, to pay tickets, to go to the game, to pay for food, to cheer on their team. Cheer and boo. That's what the fans are there to do. They're there to cheer and boo. But I'm with them with the thumbs down. I'm with him. You can do it back. It's no
cheer home fans?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's no different.
That's ballsy.
It's no different from when a fan is jarring at LeBron. LeBron, you suck. LeBron, you suck. And LeBron's talking trash right back to him, putting on a show, hitting threes. There's no difference between Reggie Miller getting into it with Spike Lee on the sideline. It's all entertainment. I view this as a great thing for Major League Baseball. I know the ownership of the Mets is like, hey, man, chill out. And I'm with him, too, because, you know, those are the paying customers, the fans that are paying customers. But this is bringing that element that the NBA has. This is bringing that element that the NFL has, that interaction with the fans. I have no problem with the fans booing. I encourage the fans to boo a player when they're not performing. And, hey, you boo? Okay, I'm gonna give it right back to you. He didn't give him the bird, for goodness sakes. He gave him the thumbs down. And I have no problem with none of this. I love this. I think this is awesome for baseball. Like, you boo him? All right, fine. I'm gonna give you the thumbs down when I'm playing good. No, don't cheer for me. If this is motivating him to play better baseball, because that's what all the fans want. They want him to play better. If he's playing better and he's using this as motivation, it's a win-win for everybody, because let's keep it real. If booing him makes him play better, keep booing him. If him giving y'all the thumbs down and y'all winning games, let him keep doing the thumbs down. Like, I think they can use this and turn it into a positive, not only on the field, but on the financial side too. You know, get some thumbs down t-shirts for sale.
Look at you, the ultimate marketer, the ultimate opportunist. You bring up some good points. I will say that one of the most memorable storylines out of the NBA playoffs was Trae Young, and not just his performance, but Kev, the difference is he's booing his home fans. It's not like Spike Lee was a Hawks fan and was booing Trae Young and trying to go against him. These are your home fans. Like, Andy Dalton got booed by fans at a celebrity softball game when the All-Star game was in Cincinnati. Okay,
terrible.
That's some interesting stuff right there. Okay, but I mean, a celebrity softball game, and they introduced him in his home city and they booed him. I mean, that's unbelievable. So I do believe that if you want to talk, it's not like he's going on the road and can't handle the people booing him. He's like expecting that, hey, this is our home field, is our safe haven. This should be where we're able to kind of iron out some of our struggles. I have a problem with you booing me. I have no problem with him being upset at his home fans. I do think players need to call out their home fans sometimes and say, hey, guys, you're not helping the situation.
Right.
If you think that booing me is going to make me all of a sudden swing the bat better, you're part of the reason why I'm struggling even more, because I want to perform so badly for you guys, and you booing me is not making it any better. If he approaches that, I'm fine with that. But to your point, I have no problem when players go at the fans when they're on the road and the home and the away fans are coming at you. But I think it's even more of a slap in the face when your home fans are coming at you. Or maybe it should tell you something. Maybe it should tell the front office something. But I do like that. It's adding personality to the game. Baez, baseball needs a villain. Baseball needs a villain that's not juicing, that's not wiping crap and snot on balls, that's not involved in off-the-field situations that make the sport look bad. Baseball needs a true villain. The NBA has true villains. The NFL has villains. What Major League Baseball does not have is guys that you tune in to watch fail. That used to be the Yankees. It's not the case anymore. The Yankees have not won at a high enough level for me to care anymore. So it's kind of one of those situations where as much as I can't stand Javier Baez, as much as I can't stand guys like Yadier Molina and guys like that, baseball needs more of these guys who are making it interesting. So I have a problem with him booing home fans, but it is, to your point, Kev, good for baseball. My sympathy meter for him, it's at a 0. I don't feel bad for him, but I can understand what he's saying by, hey, home fans, we're in this together. If we win together, we lose together, and you're a part of that. And I think that they're a part of his struggles at times. But, man, it is pretty interesting. And I think you're right. T-shirts, signs at the games where you have the finger emojis, and fans could either point them for thumbs down or point them for thumbs up. There's a lot of creative avenues they can go. But you had the team owner come out and get all ticked off on, we're going to address this. We're going to nip this in the butt. No, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. I agree with you on that. I haven't thought about that angle, but congrats, Kev. You took a stubborn fellow like me, made me think. I like it.
And another thing about it, like the fans have every right to world to boo because before like the thumbs down gate, like they had lost like I want to say like 8 of the last 10 games. Like you're trying to get to the playoffs and you're losing to. I mean, the Dodgers are good. I mean, obviously, but I mean, you're getting swept by the Dodgers. You're losing to the Giants. I mean, you got to try to make the playoffs, and the fans are upset. Like, that's their right to boo. Like, the stuff that was going on with Trae Young in the NBA with the popcorn and all that, like, no, that's off limits. But booing, that is every fan's right to do. Like, I boo people, and I ain't even at the game. This is what it is.
But I think what makes this different is this isn't him booing the away crowd. What makes this interesting is the home fans. Like he's going at his home fans, his customers.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine owning a business, Kev, and I own a business and I go on Yelp review and I see that this mofo wrote a bad Yelp review. And then he has the nerve to walk back into my restaurant. Boo. Boo. That would be the equivalent to what Javi Baez is doing. These fans are giving him negative Yelp reviews, but they keep coming back. And it's like, no. You don't get no soup for you. No soup for you. That's what Baez is basically saying.
Yeah.
No soup for you. There you go.
Play better. Won't get booed.
That was a very long sympathy meter example number 1. On to the next one. Scott Frost and Nebraska. The seat was warm coming in, and usually the hot seat, it takes a game or two, or it takes a couple of games before the seat gets hot. You lose to Illinois. Scott Frost, the seat's no longer warm. It's officially hot. Don't know if he'll even survive the season, even though I'm not a big fan of canning guys in the middle of a season. I don't see how that helps unless the culture is toxic that you need to kind of hit a reset button. I don't see him coaching at Nebraska past this season. The sympathy meter on a 1 through 10 for me for Scott Frost. I have a lot of sympathy for him. I have sympathy for every alumnus that goes back to coach their old school. If things ever go downhill with Anthony Grant at UD, that would be painful to watch because of, if Archie would have got canned from UD at some point, it would have sucked because he was a part of a lot of, great things here, but he wasn't a flyer. He didn't go to UD. That's part of it. But Anthony Grant's a flyer. He played here. He played for Coach Donner. He's a part of the history of the program. If it ever goes downhill and they have to can him and watch him go, I will have a ton of sympathy for him in that situation. Frost, I have a ton of sympathy for him. If it doesn't work out for Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, I'll have sympathy there because your alma mater, that's a special place in your heart. And to go back, it's an honor to coach there. But if it doesn't work out, your lasting memory will not be the time that you were cheered as a player. It'll be the time that you were booed and hated by your home fans for not winning. So I know the name of the game is to get the job done the way he did at UCF. But I have a lot of sympathy for him. I feel bad for him as the person in this situation. As a football coach, no, you got to do your damn job. What's going on? Come on now. But as a person, I feel bad for him because when this doesn't work out and he gets canned, he'll never be able to look at his alma mater the same again. And I think that's where I always feel bad for guys in that situation where you want to risk being a part of something special, but you also risk really spoiling good memories from your past and making them things that you don't want to go back to that campus. You don't want to be associated with them anymore. And that's what I feel bad for him. As a football coach, zero sympathy whatsoever. It's at a 0 for me. But as the person, it's a full-on 10 for me. I do feel for him in that regards if and when he gets canned.
Yeah, I feel bad for him as well, man. You know, him coming from UCF, you know, they were 13-0 and, you know, national champions and everything like that. What people got to start to realize about Nebraska is they have more talent at UCF. Like, they have a ton of guys in the NFL that were on that 2017 team. Gabriel is the starting wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. They got a couple DBs. I mean, the twins, the Griffin twins, they're in the NFL. They were on that undefeated team in 17 from UCF. So they have had NFL talent on that team. They don't have NFL talent on Nebraska right now, and it's hard to get guys to go to Nebraska. This ain't the 80s and 90s with Tom Osborne being able to go down to Texas to grab kids, to go down to Florida and grab Tommy Frazier, go out to California to grab a running back. Like, this ain't then. Like, y'all ain't the only team that's on TV now. Every school's on TV. The simple fact is that at UCF, he could walk outside in Orlando and drive an hour south or drive an hour north or drive an hour east or drive an hour west and go find some players that could come in there immediately and play football for him. In Nebraska, you can't do that. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. They're the Cornhuskers. Like, so the amount of talent that you can go and grab and bring to the team isn't there. Yeah. UCF had more talent. That's why he was able to win. He was able to get more talent there quickly and turn that program around quickly because it was more talent. They were in Florida, for goodness sakes. So I feel bad for him just like you do. He's at a position where he can't win. There's not going to be a situation where he's going to be able to turn it around like that. So I don't think it's going to end well for him there, and it's going to be tough because, you know, we look at it as fans and like, oh man, imagine how it feels to be a player on a Nebraska championship team. Well, he was on the Nebraska championship team. He was on 2 Nebraska championship teams. His homecomings ain't gonna be the same as Tommy Frazier's homecomings because Tommy Frazier never coached at Nebraska and now putting up these losing records. I mean, it's not only the fact that they lost their season opener to Illinois 30-22, but it's the way they looked. It looked like they weren't coached well, and that's the bigger problem. Like, you got dudes fielding punts inside the 3-yard line. Everybody knows, hey man, heels on the 10, man. If it just let it go into the end zone, be a touchback, we get it on the 20. You got that. You got dudes fumbling the ball left and right. You got dudes throwing pick sixes. I mean, Adrian Martinez seems like he's been there for decades. Doesn't seem like he's getting any better. You know what I'm saying? It looks like his best year was his freshman year. So it's a ton going on there in the program. But the biggest problem is they don't have a lot of talent on the football team.
Yeah, look, I found this interesting. So this is according to RJ Young. RJ Young is a national college football writer and analyst out of Tulsa. But he tweeted this out, that college football's winningest programs in the last 50 years. Alabama has 495 wins. Ohio State has 490. Oklahoma has 482. Nebraska has the 4th most wins in the last 50 years. The only programs that have more wins than Nebraska, I just said Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Those 3 teams ahead of them are in the playoff picture every year. Nebraska, they're just hoping that they're eligible for a bowl game by the end of this season. So,
and that speaks to the job that Tom Osborne did in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm. And that's how front-loaded that success was, because it's not being carried by the back end. All right, and last but not least, I'm sorry, this is a longer sympathy meter segment right here. And real quick, so David Shaw said, so you have sympathy for Jim Harbaugh? Yes, I do. Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan alum, the former player. Jim Harbaugh, the coach, you're failing at your job. Jim Harbaugh is failing at his job, but Jim Harbaugh will never be able to have all the warm, fuzzy feelings for that program when he leaves because of the lack of success as a coach. So yes, Shaw, I do have sympathy for him as the alumnus, not so much the coach, if that makes sense. If you could just, very politicalized answer right there, plead in the fifth, basically, right? And last but not least on the sympathy meter, John Harbaugh. J.K. Dobbins goes down with a season-ending knee injury, Kev, which, by the way, sympathy meter for him, a 10. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but he's not who this is technically about, but he is the subject line of the matter. J.K. Dobbins goes down with a season-ending knee injury, which has led to heavy criticism of Coach Harbaugh's usage of the former Buckeye in the preseason finale. Kev, he tore his ACL in the opening drive, of the preseason game, which, by the way, I'd say 95% of all NFL teams played their starters in at least some minimalistic capacity, and Harbaugh is getting blamed. How much sympathy do you have for John Harbaugh using the sympathy meter of 1 to 10? For me, I have the fact that he's getting criticized is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. This is the whole problem with the preseason. The coaches who don't play their starters get ripped because, oh, man, you're just over-babying these guys. And in my opinion, injuries are part of football. Yep. To play football, you got to practice football. And to practice football, you got to be on the field. And that goes the same for any sport. Jim Harbaugh has as much responsibility of Dobbins getting hurt than John Harbaugh does, because that's how little responsibility either of those coaches has for Dobbins' season-ending injury. It's not as if Dobbins was getting heavy carries into the third quarter.
Right.
It was the opening drive, and the Ravens have they're in the bottom 5 as far as starters getting carries or getting any kind of time out on the field throughout the preseason. I can't believe that people are actually going after Harbaugh for this. This is the whole thing. Zach Taylor did not get ripped for playing Joe Burrow over the weekend. And he shouldn't have, by the way. I have no problem with him throwing him out there. My only criticism was not really a Zach Taylor thing. My thing is, if you're going to play your starters, play them for the first quarter, play them for the first half, play them. I don't know. Joe Burrow got 0 out of his 3-play drive that he had. Other than just the fans getting to see him, I don't think Joe Burrow woke up the next day saying, okay, I wasn't prepared for the season, but those 3 plays have me ready to go. So my thing is, and it's not a Zach Taylor thing, it's all coaches. Let them play. If you're going to play them in the preseason, let them get a good chunk of playing time, not just one drive. I think it's a waste of everyone's time. So Harbaugh, 11 is my sympathy meter ranking for him. He should not be getting ripped for playing J.K. Dobbins, who goes down with an injury in the opening drive. I think what this is everyone is freaking out for Lamar Jackson. His receiving corps is beat the heck up. COVID is beating up that roster. Lamar's been on the COVID list twice now. I mean, this is a situation where that roster is just being destroyed, and I think that was where everyone's reacting out of emotion. I feel bad for Harbaugh. He did nothing wrong. The fact that he had to spend his press conference today defending his usage of a player in preseason, this is more of a knock on the preseason itself than the coaches who try to figure out what the right thing to do is. There was no preseason last year, Kev, and the season and the product was fine. The product that wasn't fine was more of COVID issues than it was no preseason. Don't rip Harbaugh for that. There's plenty of other reasons you could rip Harbaugh for. Do not rip him for this. I have a lot of sympathy for him in this situation. Kev, what about you?
10 for Harbaugh, 10 for Dobbins. It's just bad, man.
10 for Lamar. Lamar's weapons are going down left and right, man. It's a crappy situation.
It's bad for everybody involved, man. It just sucks. It's just exactly what we've been talking about all preseason long. Like we've tried to have this discussion about, would you rather your guy get hurt in a practice or in a preseason game? And everybody said, well, shoot, at least in practice, it's practice. Like, all right, it is what it is. It's a necessary evil. Preseason isn't necessary. Like we talked about it with the high schoolers. They don't have a preseason. College, they don't have a preseason, but the NFL, they have to have a preseason. They have media partners. There's a lot of money involved and yada, yada, yada. But it just sucks. It just sucks for, the Ravens fans. Obviously, it sucks for Dobbins because he was going to be looking to have a breakout season. You look at the 2 sophomore running backs in the NFL that were looking to have some great years in Dobbins and Akers, and their season's over before it even starts.
2 very similar backs to that.
Yeah.
Smaller build, fast guys, make plays out of the backfield as well. But yeah, Harbaugh, like I said, this is stupid because there are coaches who play their guys a lot. I mean, Andy Reid played Patrick Mahomes the whole first half, and no one's
bootlegs.
Yeah, getting hit. And by the way, the only reason he didn't get criticized is because Patrick Mahomes walked away.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins got hurt on the opening drive. Not even again, I could see if he had played the whole first half, Kevin, got knocked out in the start of the third quarter. Why is he even playing in the third quarter? But we're talking about the opening drive of the first quarter, where the highlight of the finale of preseason was Joe Burrow getting snaps. We saw Baker Mayfield. We saw a lot of players play over the weekend that we hadn't the previous weeks. And that was just to kind of give them that that little push right before week 1 here in 2 weeks. And that's
football, man. Football.
Exactly. Injuries are part of the game, as you always say as well.
Yes, sir.
And that is the sympathy meter. All right, hour 2 in the books, hour 3 coming up. Kev Nash will bring us over under. Speaking of the Browns and the Bengals, takeaways from their preseason finales, and what did you learn about either team in this preseason? Think about the questions coming into the season, and think about the questions you still have heading into the regular season. Was the preseason worth anything? Did you get anything? Did you take anything away from this? We'll talk about that, as well as Kev Nash bringing us over under. We'll look ahead to Thursday night's Ohio State Minnesota game as well. Plus, you can jump in the chat section as the comments. Facebook, The Justin Kinner Show, YouTube, ESPN Dayton. Subscribe there. Be a part of the conversation. We'll be back. Hour 3 coming up next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Have you ever thought about having a podiatric physician examine your feet? Doctors of Podiatric Medicine are physicians. They set broken bones, perform wound care, treat corns, calluses, remove bunions, and can even perform total ankle replacements. Our physicians complete 3-year residencies in hospitals and train to manage your total foot and ankle health. Athletes with arch problems or tendon issues frequently seek out care from our physicians. Common health issues that podiatric physicians treat include ingrown or fungal nails, as well as warts and skin problems like athlete's foot. If you have ulcers or blisters, you should have that checked, and have your footwear checked too. Diabetics are especially prone to foot issues when they have neuropathy. Foot exams are easy and can prevent many foot problems. If you can't walk, work, or enjoy sports activities without pain, what are you waiting for? Visit associationsadvanceohio.com to find a podiatric physician who is a member of the Ohio Foot and Ankle Medical Association to help you, so you know that you are being treated by the very best.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
There's never any FOMO with the iHeartRadio app. You won't ever have to miss out on your favorite shows and contests with this radio station again. Radio 24/7, 365. We're here when you want us. Stay connected and listen anywhere when you download the free iHeartRadio app.
Staples Connect has everything to help you get ready for back to school with amazing prices for everything on your list. Visit your local Staples store, staplesconnect.com, and be more than ready for school. Staples.
The Reds are on the radio.
Every hit, every strikeout, every Reds victory. You can catch all of the action all season long right here on Dayton's home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER. And ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
D-Max, home of the Duramax diesel engine, is now hiring in Moraine and Brookville. To learn more about D-Max and all current openings, go to dmaxengines.com. That's dmaxengines.com. D-Max, your engine for success.
Hi, John Glazer here for Glazier Soft Water. We've been making water great since 1988, and no matter what your water issues, we have solutions. Your city water can be clear, but still be hard and have the taste and odor of chlorine. Well water can look, smell, and taste terrible. Glazier Soft Water will fix your water and will even include a 7-year parts and labor warranty, so you don't have to worry. Visit our website to learn more at glaziersoftwater.com. Glazier Water really is better water.
You wanted the best? Well, you got the best. The hottest band in the world. Cheers.
Kiss. The end of the road tour. One last kiss. This Thursday, Wright State's Nutter Center. Kiss on their final tour ever. On sale now at Ticketmaster.com. History will be made.
Is fall your favorite season? Lowe's is definitely the place to get ready for it, especially during Labor Day. From fall garden gear to seasonal decor, they have it all at a great price.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Want free Reds tickets? How about a free MLB Network Reds bag? Maybe a Reds bobblehead? Here's an idea. How about we combine them all together and give you a chance to win a free WING Reds prize pack presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Register daily at wingam.com. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com. We're live. We're local.
What are you gonna miss? He struck him out.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, we are back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash hanging out with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So, NFL preseason officially wrapped up.
Thank goodness.
I'm watching on Facebook and YouTube right now, and our camera just went super yellow. Yellow? For those watching at home, does the screen look yellow to you? I have like jaundice look to my face right now. It's very strange, but right? Do I look yellow to you? I'm a little concerned.
Well, then.
No, like me, my face. In real life. Do I look okay? Oh, no. Back to pale. There we go. We're back to normal. So there we go. Okay. NFL preseason officially wrapped up over the weekend. The Browns and the Bengals both played. Bengals and Dolphins played yesterday, and then the Browns, of course, beat the Falcons to come away. They're undefeated in the preseason, and we all know what happens. The last time the Cleveland Browns went undefeated in the preseason, they went 0-16. So there you go. I don't anticipate that being the case here. But got to see Baker Mayfield throw a touchdown, looked efficient. Like, I will say this is my homer take. He just looks locked in. He just looks comfortable. That's all you can ask for right now. There's nothing you could take away from preseason, especially for quarterback's sake, which is why I feel bad for rookie quarterbacks like Mac Jones and Justin Fields and others who we're really trying to figure out. Like, Kev, we're really using games that they are facing third and fourth stringers. Look at half the guys that got cut today, by the way, as rosters are being shrunk down by the deadline. Justin Fields lighting up third and fourth stringers is going to be what people pressure the Bears into starting him. And then when he doesn't look the part against actual starters, we're going to say, oh, see, man, he's really regressed since the preseason. That, or you're actually playing somebody.
Right.
That's my biggest takeaway of preseason. Why I think it's the most overrated thing in the world is preseason analysis, because you're not getting a true take of anything. This would be like dropping a pro quarterback, taking Patrick Mahomes, sending him back to Texas Tech for a season and watching him light up those defenses and say he might be the best college quarterback of all time. That's what you're basically doing with Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Man, he looks great, doesn't he? He looks solid. I think the Patriots found their next Tom Brady. Well, Tom Brady would look like that too. Except Tom Brady looks like that against actual starters and against third and fourth stringers. We don't know. So I hate this. Like, I cringe when I watch those morning shows on ESPN and Fox and everyone, and they're serious, Kev. They're in their suits. They got their notes. Man, and by the way, I want Justin Fields to be the starter in Chicago. The thing is, Baker Mayfield when he started, Joe Burrow when he started, we didn't know what the hell they were going to be. Now, Joe Burrow didn't get a true preseason last year, but that's my point. Joe Burrow just went out there and was Joe Burrow, and the only thing he had to go against in the preseason was his own defense preparing him for the upcoming season. And that was a bad defense. And people were saying how good Joe Burrow looked in the preseason last year against his own bad defense. And then guess what? He looked even better against better defenses come the regular season, even with that bad offensive line. Preseason's a waste of time. It really is. But we love our football. We love to overhype things. Justin Fields throws a touchdown. I mean, that one pass he had that he rolled out, it was 2 preseason games ago. It was in the third quarter, and he bombed it down the field for a wide open wide receiver, by the way. Didn't we knock Mac Jones? Well, Mac Jones, it was easy for him at Alabama because every receiver was standing wide open. Well, every touchdown that Justin Fields has thrown has been to a guy wide open. I'm not ripping Justin Fields. My point is, I think he's going to be a hell of an NFL quarterback. But that's my opinion based on nothing to do with what we've seen in the preseason. I'm just not a fan of that, Kev. Like, in no other line of sports do we say where we watch guys beat up on lower opponents and say that's how we know they're great. Not college football for that. Alabama, they're not that good. All they did was beat up on some, they beat up on some no-name. Ohio State, they're just going to beat up on Tulsa and Akron. That's not a true indicator of who they are. But yet in preseason, Justin Fields is about to be the greatest Buckeye quarterback in the history of the NFL because he threw some touchdowns against some third and fourth stringers. Sorry, that ain't it for me. I do think he'll be good, but I'm not going to tell you that based on what we've seen in lazy preseason games. I'm just not. I'm not a fan of the preseason. I hate it. J.K. Dobbins goes down in a preseason game. I hate it. You made a good point earlier. I could stomach it if he goes down in a drive in practice going up against their defense because you have to prepare somehow. You don't need preseason games. It's a waste of time. It really
big
is.
Waste of time. Yeah, I have a problem with people that be like jumping out at like, oh man, he was 10 of 12 for 112 yards. Like, I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about like, all right, man, does he know where the play clock is? Does he get the guys in and out of the huddle? Like small things like that, minute things to everybody else. But like in reality, those are going to be big things because if you can't do the basics, you'll never be able to do the big stuff that Tom Brady does.
And the other thing too, and by the way, Justin Fields did get rocked hard in a couple preseason games, but what was the big knock on him before? Well, he can't handle when he can't handle pressure playing in high pressure. He can't handle when the pressure's coming at him and all that, which I thought was the stupidest knock against him because there's not a quarterback in the history of football that plays well with guys running at you, trying to rip your head off because your offensive line is bad. Now you could say, well, Joe Burrow had some great numbers last year, despite the bad offensive line, especially Justin Herbert. Oh, absolutely. But that's Joe Burrow playing well with pressure in his face. Imagine if you protect the dude. Mm-hmm. What's Joe Burrow going to do to defenses when he has time to throw and he's not running for his life? Justin Herbert did that last year with no offensive line. Kev, how good is the dude going to be this year with an offensive line? And they got him an offensive line. Like, that's the thing. So Justin Fields, the whole thing is, we don't want to draft him because he doesn't do well when they send guys at him and he has a bad offense. Well, then get him a good offensive line and go from there. If he's good with a good offensive line, then always make sure he has a good offensive line. That's like saying a quarterback's only good if they have a run game. Your quarterback last year, Big Ben, we said he was a bum because he looked tired. Yeah, because he's 40 years old and having to throw the ball 500 times a game because they don't have a run game. Get him a run game like we think that they did this year. Watch watch. I can see the headlines now. Big Ben just turns back the hands of time. Thank you, because I was about to butcher that saying. But like, watch how that is. Big Ben wasn't bad last year. Big Ben was a result of not having a full element of attack on offense. If he has that this year, if he has that run game this year, we will say stupid things like that. Just like Tom Brady 2 years ago, he should retire. Look, he took a step back. That last year, New England, they go as he goes. And look, Tom Brady didn't have, he didn't have it. He didn't have weapons. It's kind of funny how you send him to Tampa and he has a great offensive line and he has a solid run game and he has wide receivers and a tight end at every turn. Oh, wow, Tom Brady, he's like the greatest 40-year-old quarterback of all time. That, or he has talent. That's the thing. So it's all about having talent. If Justin Fields struggles in year one, does he have talent? No. And most quarterbacks that go high in the draft don't.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence yesterday diced up the Cowboys' second, third, and fourth string defense. Everyone's like, oh, see, that's why he's the number one. He was the number one pick for many reasons, and it had nothing to do with what you saw him do against the stupid Cowboys backup defenders yesterday. I will say this, though. Urban's team yesterday looked more like he looked more confident on the sideline. Urban did. You know what I'm saying? And Trevor Lawrence looked comfortable, even under duress at times. And the offense looked like they had a plan. That's the one thing you can't take away from preseason games. It's like you can't take any good away, but man, I think if there's any bad to take away, you can be concerned about that. Urban's teams looked horrible in the first two preseason games. They looked more in sync, under control yesterday. And I guess if there's a positive takeaway to be made, that's one right there for old Herbs. Get the extension signed, baby. Make room on the mantle for your Coach of the Year trophy. Get it ready. So, but yeah, as I said, Urban Meyer's success is not going to be based on wins, losses for the first year, maybe two. It's going to be nothing but the development of Trevor Lawrence.
You didn't break the young QB.
Not yet, anyways.
Yeah, let's hope not. Because, the way they're going to be playing football, the way they're going to be winning games, man, we expected them to be a heavy running team with, Travis Etienne, the other first-round pick, and then, their running back from last year, the undrafted guy that had over 1,200 yards rushing last year, and then them signing, Carlos Hyde. But with Etienne being hurt now, what are they going to do offensively? That's the question mark for me.
That's another big name out for the season, by the way, between Akers and J.K. Dobbins and now him. And it was actually Etienne before Dobbins. But the point is, a lot of big name backs who are going to be out. And Etienne hasn't proven anything yet. But we've seen guys like him come in and make instant impacts right away. So he will make an impact by not being there, and it's going to be obvious.
Yeah.
All right, so the big question I have is question marks heading into the season. Not that you expect preseason to answer any of those, but my opinion on the Bengals has not changed based on anything I've seen in the preseason. If anything, I think more questions were created. Folks, I'm not hating here. I think Bengals fans, you might agree with me, might disagree here, but please take off your cap of everything I say being a hater comment. I think you can agree with it. Jamar Chase is not a bust. He is not even in the conversation of being a bust. But you can start to question, why is he dropping passes? That's the easy thing to do. He dropped a pass. His only target yesterday, he dropped it. There's reports of him having some rough practices, reports of him having some great practices. I'm not going to base his identity off of that. But you do have to wonder what is getting in the way of him being able to catch these balls consistently, because that's a problem. It's not a problem. I'm going to go into week one and say, oh, man, he's a bust. But it's noted. It's noted that he's having these issues. He could end up having such a high catch percentage, the first 3 weeks of the season, and we'll forget about these dumb preseason conversations and move on. But if that carries over into the regular season, I don't think you Bengals fans have the right to tell me that I'm overreacting. I'm not going to overreact to it. I have it in my notes. Something to look for heading into the season. I think that he has created those question marks. He had a chance to confirm that the Bengals made the right choice, and I don't think he's done that yet. All right. I'm not even going to go and harp on the Bengals and say that they're horrible and blah, blah, blah. I think you know where I stand with that anyways. But Jamar Chase had a chance in preseason to solidify that, oh, yeah, the Bengals made the right choice.
Right.
And he hasn't done that yet. And that's all I'm going to say on that. And he could end up having 7 catches for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 1 against the Vikings. And then all of this is pointless jibber jabber. But until then, it's something that you should be concerned about. That's supposed to be your number one wide receiver that you put the pressure on as a rookie to come in to be. And if he can't be that, it's going to be tough for him to mentally dig himself out of that hole that he's already started digging here in the preseason. But outside of that, we don't know about the offensive line. We didn't learn anything about them. We didn't learn anything about Joe Burrow other than the fact that he's a freak human who can recover from a whole knee reconstruction surgery in 7 freaking months, and the dude's going to be ready to go by week 1. That's the only thing I learned, is that Joe Burrow is not human. That's the only thing I learned in the preseason. The dude's not human. He's unbelievable. That's it. But that's on the Bengals, Rip. That's on everyone. No one learned anything about anyone in the preseason. That's the whole point of this segment, is to say we don't really need to go into what did you learn about the Browns and Bengals, because we didn't learn anything other than the fact that Joe Burrow is superhuman and can recover in 7 months' time from what should keep guys out for 2 to 3 years.
The fact of the matter is we learned more from the beat reporters tweeting from practice than we did from the preseason games.
Yep.
That's the reality, because practice during camp is what really matters. The preseason results don't matter. Yes, obviously you getting rookies out there, them hitting the field for the very first time. Yeah, it's cool. It matters. You want their first time ever to be stepping on an NFL field to be for a live game and everything like that. Them getting to get on a plane and travel to this destination, seeing how things go, seeing how things are operated. Those are small, minute things that we as fans overlook constantly. But yeah, they're small things, but they're important things. That's fine. But ultimately, the big things happen at practice. So go to your favorite team, the guy that is a beat reporter that's actually seen practice, read his tweets for the last, 2 months. Whatever he says, he or she says, that's way more important than what you saw on the field during these 3 preseason games.
Yep, and the Bengals have some great Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison. I mean, those are 2 of the best in the business. James Rapine does a fantastic job. He's come in on the show regularly. Those 3 right there are who I rely on, right? I mean, those 3 are the 3 best, in my opinion, covering the Bengals. I highly encourage you give them a follow. And look who we're talking about. You guys already follow them on Twitter. But, of course, the big news today, we talked about in the first hour, the Bengals did trade Billy Price to the Giants. And, of course, that was made official. The Giants' Twitter account has confirmed it, as well as the Bengals. So there's that. So Paul Dehner Jr. says that the Giants release includes that the conditional 7th-round pick is involved. The Bengals release did not. So there is a draft pick involved in this trade. Of course, the Giants needed some depth at offensive line, and they went ahead and gave up one of their pass rushers to do it. So the Giants today re-entered the trade market in their continuing quest to upgrade their O-line. They get Billy Price from the Bengals, and they send lineman B.J. Hill and a 2022 conditional 7th-round pick over to Cincinnati. B.J. Hill comes to Cincinnati mainly because Joseph Osai, unfortunately, that freak season-ending injury. That's unfortunate because the dude, his very first play as a Bengal in the preseason, being a part of the sack on Tom Brady. How cool was that for him? Provided some excitement and some energy for the Bengals defensively. They have to find a way to add to some of that depth. I still think there's question marks with the pass rush of the Bengals. I know they have Hendrickson, which was a great pickup in the offseason, but as I've said, and I'm just a hater, I know, I don't think it was a great pickup. It was just a great replacement of Lawson. If you had Lawson and you acquired him, now you have a 2-headed monster. Now I'm impressed. I'm not impressed by losing one great pass rusher and replacing him with another, because you're right back where you started. Joseph Osai could have been the answer to that solution right there. Unfortunately, he's out. I'm not jumping for joy over B.J. Hill or fearing B.J. Hill at this point, but they needed an answer. They got one right there. How good will he be? We don't know at this point. Last thing on the Billy Price thing, my only takeaway on that was it needed to happen. They were going to trade him. I just thought that because of lack of depth at the OL, I thought it was interesting that they moved on from him now. I think it was, I forgot who was that tweeted into the show earlier saying that they had to move on from him now because you're not going to get anything for him as he walks at the end of the season, because they weren't going to re-up his deal anyways. So that's one reason that they led to it. Again, not a lot of depth in that OL. I just thought it was interesting that they moved on from him at the timing in which they did, but they had no choice, I guess, big picture.
I guess the biggest thing about the Carl Lawson, them letting him walk, was the $45 million deal he got from the Jets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I need to Google and see how much they ended up paying
Hendrickson. And I got to see that too. But it was it wasn't that much different from what they Lawson was asking for. My big thing is if Ty goes to the runner, Ty goes to the guy that you drafted. That's why I wanted them to keep Lawson. That's the only reason I was against them letting Lawson walk. It didn't make any sense. And the Bengals are usually good at taking care of their own guys. So there's that. But you're looking that up now,
Yeah, I'm
right?
looking that up now. I don't. So okay. Well, he signed a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Bengals. So they paid more.
But see, and there was no talk of them getting Hendrickson either. But you could argue that they overpaid to get him.
Right.
If you weren't going after both, you might as well have kept Lawson for cheaper and then been able to go after another big piece.
And that's
later.
what I was thinking. I was thinking like some of the other moves that they did, they could have got both of the guys, and then you have 2 bookend rushing defensive ends, then you can cause some havoc. But it's the Bengals.
All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. And now it's that awkward week. This reminds me of the Super Bowl after the AFC and NFC championship games, Kev. They end up, the NFC AFC championship games wrap up. A week of nothing but media, jibber jabber and all that. And then the next week, it's the build up to the Super Bowl. That's kind of what this is. Final preseason game. This is being treated as a bye week. A lot of guys getting a lot of teams are given multiple off days. I think according to the collective bargaining agreement, I think they get 3 off days anyways in this extra week right here.
Mm-hmm.
So they're off 3 days off this week. And then next week it's treated as game week. And then it's back to your regular, presentation or preparation for that week. So there you go. All right. So now we just got to figure out, we got to do the typical, just drag our feet and come up with weird Bengals Browns topics for one more week until we get to game prep week. And that's really what we all are really excited about.
Thank goodness we got the Buckeyes Thursday.
Exactly. Speaking of the Buckeyes, Ohio State, Minnesota, 6:30 is when network coverage begins right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio, and on our sister station, 92.9 Jack FM. Ohio State, Minnesota. Thursday night, they kick off the 2021 season. We get to see and hear from C.J. Stroud for the first time as he makes his debut for the Buckeyes on Thursday. Cannot be more excited about that. Again, tough start to the season. You're on the road at Minnesota Thursday night, primetime, under the lights. C.J. Stroud making his debut. And then, you get 10 days to prepare for Oregon, a top 25, a top 12 matchup at that point. So the Buckeyes playoff resume, it's on full display in the very early going, and then they have Tulane and Akron for a couple weeks before they get back into Big Ten play. Kev Nash brings us over under, and he does that next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 83. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a low near 66. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy, also with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 78. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Ready for renovations? Arts Rental Equipment has the tools you need to make your home, lawn, and garden stand out this year. From brush chippers to cutoff saws, no job is too small or too big. Visit your local Arts store today. Work smart. Rent from Arts.
I'm Serena Williams. You watch me live on TV.
And I'm that voice from movies you watch on demand. DirecTV Stream brought us together to save the world.
Maybe not save the world, but DirecTV Stream does bring your live and on-demand favorites together.
Your favorites together.
I just said that.
She just said that.
Introducing DirecTV Stream, the best of live TV and on demand with no annual contract. Get your TV together at DirecTV.com.
Requires high-speed internet and compatible device. Content varies by package and location. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone. It's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy houses as is, fast for cash. Call me today for an all-cash offer on any of your properties, and we can close within days at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. Do you own a property that's outdated and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, I'll buy it. I'm a private real estate investor who can solve your real estate problems fast for cash. Do you want to sell and just be done with it? Okay, great. I buy vacant properties, boarded up houses, pre-foreclosures, and inherited properties. I also buy apartment buildings, rental portfolios, divorce homes. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. I look forward to solving your real estate problems today. Call me today for an all-cash offer at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Collett Propane is proud to serve the greater Miami Valley. 98% of our customers would recommend switching over to Collett Propane. Summertime is the best time to switch suppliers. Tank set specials are available now. Purchase options like budget billing and pre-buy are available too. Collett Propane keeps things simple. Find out more online at collettpropane.com or visit us in Xenia, Wilmington, or Lebanon. Collett Propane, proudly keeping the Miami Valley warm for over 65 years.
Do you have a home improvement project? Use the right tool for the job and rent from Arts Rental Equipment. Arts has the best selection from power washers and ladders to loaders and dump trailers. Work smart. Rent from Arts.
Vaccines are not enough, and accurate thermometers are essential for everyone. COVID is once again a major concern, and fever is the key symptom for both the flu and COVID. An accurate thermometer, like the Exergen temporal scanner, is essential to detect fevers early and reliably. Studies have shown that non-contact thermometers are ineffective and therefore dangerous, as they create a false sense of security. Exergen is working with a single focus to ensure that everyone who needs an accurate thermometer can purchase one. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Welcome to a place where everyone deserves to be better protected, where technology has your back, where you can have better protection and keep more money in your pocket, where you can have protection for your car, your home, your phone, and even your digital identity. Welcome to a place where your entire life can be better protected. You're in good hands with Allstate.
Allstate and affiliates offer products and services subject to availability, terms, and conditions.
Is fall your favorite season? Lowe's is definitely the place to get ready for it, especially during Labor Day. From fall garden gear to seasonal decor, they have it all at a great price.
Don't miss the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week every Friday night, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will have the call all season long. Check out wingam.com for the complete schedule and to stream the games live. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
So, regarding our Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week, it was only a matter of time before this happened. We've been talking about the continual issue in high school football right now. I shouldn't just say football, it's all high school sports, but football, of course, being on the front burner as far as getting most of the attention. COVID has just knocked out. I mean, in week 2, there was 30 plus games that were impacted by COVID-19, where there was games that were just full out canceled or games that were just reshuffled around as far as opponents kind of, teams having to find a late opponent to add. We saw that with CJ and Moeller over this past weekend in week 2. And we have Springfield at Trotwood this coming up Friday night, or at least we thought. Now, this is according to TM Ram Nation, which is the official Twitter account of Trotwood Madison Athletics. Okay, this is just Twitter. And as of an hour ago, it says, per the guidelines of public health, Dayton and Montgomery County, the Trotwood football program will be on pause until September 6th. It says our JV varsity football games this weekend for Springfield have been canceled. So I'm seeing this on Twitter. I'm just passing it on from Twitter because we know Twitter's gospel. So there you go. But so that puts us in a pickle. Our Glacier Softwater Game of the Week is now up in the air. And so I have to go and get that all taken care of. We'll find out and keep you updated as far as what our next game and who our next matchup is going to be. So we will keep you updated on that. But it's unfortunate. And by the way, I hope whatever has led to this pause that's COVID related, I hope everyone is safe. Hope everyone is healthy or as healthy as can be, and that everyone is okay. Because that's really what matters the most. It doesn't matter about football, but at the end of the day, do want to make sure we get that set. So there you go. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. We talked a lot. I mean, look, the other thing that's going on right now, I mean, the hurricane is Ida. Ida. I was in, what was funny is the path of this storm. When I went on vacation last year, I went to Pensacola, and we had continued on with the trip because they said that we were just going to get the tropical storm, that we were going to get the effects of the Hurricane Sally that was heading towards New Orleans. Well, by the time we got there and got settled in, the tropical storm had then changed to a Category 1 hurricane because the eye of the hurricane, the storm itself had shifted and relocated and started kind of the pattern moved and was heading right towards Pensacola. By the time it was said and done, I think we were 10 miles per hour away from it being a Category 3. But, I got to experience my first hurricane, not just hurricane winds, but like the eye of the hurricane went right over us at our stay in Pensacola last year. This storm had the same path as last year, except it actually went into New Orleans and went into Louisiana. And it's just everything I'm seeing and reading and hearing, it's horrible. Yeah. So to anyone around here that has family or that has lived there or knows someone that lives there, thoughts, prayers to those individuals there who are being impacted by that. Not trying to make light of it by going into a sports story here, but New Orleans Saints coach Sean Payton says he does not expect a return to the city this week following Hurricane Ida, and that they've gotten through this before, that they'll get through it again, but a lot of question marks as far as where they're going to be prepping and where they're going to be, getting ready. He said the last thing that's on his players' mind is week 1 of the NFL season. He said, we all have homes that we don't even know if we're still standing or not. And that's what's crazy about this too. It's just a waiting game. You evacuate, you leave, you wait for the storm to pass through, and then you're just, your personal belongings, your homes, your family homes, everything's up in limbo right now for a lot of the players and coaches who, obviously are the Saints. So shout out to them.
Absolutely. And we talk about, those guys, but, some of the citizens in New Orleans, some of those people can't evacuate. Some of those people have nowhere to go. And I know, before with Hurricane Katrina, they used the Superdome as a place of refuge and everything like that. And I just remember, I guess this was 16 years ago, basically to the day that Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. And I remember exactly where I was. I was actually on vacation to Tampa, Florida, and we were flying back and we were taxiing on the tarmac for like 3 hours because of the hurricane. They said we couldn't take off. And, when you're on vacation, you're not watching the news, especially 16 years ago. I was much younger then and doing much crazier things than watching some news about a storm. I was out partying, having a good time. So I didn't know the devastation or even the impact of Hurricane Katrina until, I finally got back home. I didn't know what was going on while I was just sitting on an airplane playing video games and while there was devastation going on. So, prayers to everybody down there in the Gulf Coast.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Kev Nash will bring us over under coming up here in a few moments. But did you happen to come across this story from over the weekend? ESPN carried a high school game that was supposed to be an Ohio team that lied. A high school football team may have lied to ESPN to play on national TV. This story was updated at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. So just over an hour ago.
All news to me.
So new details about Bishop Sycamore emerged on Monday, with ESPN releasing the following statement about Sunday's debacle. It turns out that the team also played a game on Friday, which made Sunday's game its second in just 3 days. According to Awful Announcing, the game was scheduled by Paragon Marketing Group, whose president, Rashad Ghazi, denied having knowledge of Bishop Sycamore's Friday game. Ghazi also said that the company did not do its due diligence in researching the team, talking about ESPN. We regret that this happened and have discussed it with Paragon, which secured their matchup and handles the majority of our high school football event scheduling, ESPN said in an official statement. They have assured us that they will take steps to prevent this kind of situation from happening moving forward. Now, it says that the outlet also confirmed that the OHSAA doesn't recognize Bishop Sycamore as a legitimate high school, and their physical location, practice facilities, and roster eligibility cannot be verified. What the hell is happening here? The team's head coach, oh, wow, head coach. I have no clue what just happened there. But the team's head coach, Roy Johnson, also allegedly, Kev, has an active arrest warrant thanks to fraud charges, while many of their players are said to have already graduated high school. This just keeps getting better and better. I mean, it just gets wilder and wilder.
Gosh.
This team somehow conned its way onto playing on national television. What in the world? So what I want to know, and I'm coming across this as the show's going on, apparently the result of this game was so bad. I don't even know what the score was. I don't even have all the information in front of me outside of this article that came up from Awful Announcing. So it's one of those situations where this team conned their way into this national televised game on ESPN. And I remember people tweeting out over the weekend, like, I cannot believe this game made it to ESPN. Like, this team is atrocious. Like, this is not good. What in the world? We got to... We want to Kevin and I want to read more into this.
I'm trying to find it now.
I did a horrible thing of just diving into a story without reading it all, but the headline caught my attention and my ADD took it and ran with it. So we're going to step away for a few moments. Apparently, this team with players who have technically already graduated high school, who also played a game on Friday night, who also the whereabouts of this team as far as where they practice, where they're located, their roster, they can't even confirm it. This team does not. This team has is gone ghost. We know nothing about this team, but somehow, some way, they made it to a national televised ESPN game, the Bishop Sycamore. They just played on Friday, then they had to play 2 days later on ESPN. They got trounced. This is a very interesting story. We'll have more details on the other side. Plus, Kev Nash brings us over under. Don't go anywhere. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine, returns in just a few moments.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
D-Max, home of the Duramax diesel engine, is now hiring in Moraine and Brookville. To learn more about D-Max and all current openings, go to dmaxengines.com. That's dmaxengines.com. D-Max, your engine for success.
Hi, John Glazer here for Glazier Soft Water. We've been making water great since 1988, and no matter what your water issues, we have solutions. Your city water can be clear, but still be hard and have the taste and odor of chlorine. Well water can look, smell, and taste terrible. Glazier Soft Water will fix your water and will even include a 7-year parts and labor warranty, so you don't have to worry. Visit our website to learn more at glaziersoftwater.com. Glazier Water really is better water.
The real estate market is always tough, but this market, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. When the average home stays on the market just 24 days and houses routinely go for more than the listing price, who you work with matters. Realtors have the expertise, local knowledge, and personal touch to give you a competitive advantage throughout the entire home buying process. And that's something an ordinary agent could never do. So make sure your agent is a realtor. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
Hey, welcome to Everything Outdoors. Can I help you find anything?
Hey, yeah. Can you point us to the camping gear?
Sure, aisle 2.
Snowboarding? Just bought a new Nissan Pathfinder. It's got intelligent 4x4, and we want to hit the backcountry.
Aisle 18.
And the boats?
Are you sure you can do all this?
Up to 6,000 pounds towing, we're good to go. Oh, where's the scuba gear?
Return to rugged in the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. Available intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capability varies by configuration. See Nissan Owner's Manual for proper use.
This is Roosevelt Chapman, the all-time leading scorer of the Dayton Flyers men's basketball. I'm a proud Daytonian, and I've got an important message today for men, especially you gents over 40. As a professional athlete, I focus on my numbers every day. How many points, how many rebounds, how many assists. Now I focus on my most important stats: blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, and PSA levels. In the end, those are the numbers that really count. So if you don't know your numbers, now is the time. See your doctor regularly to stay on top of your game, because no matter your age, every day and every number counts.
This message is brought to you by Molina Healthcare and Community Health Centers of Greater Dayton. If you do not have a primary health provider, call Community Health Centers of Greater Dayton at 937-461-6869 or visit communityhealthdayton.org.
You wanted the best? Well, you got the best. The hottest band in the world. Cheers.
Cheers. The end of the road tour. One last cheers. It's Thursday, White State's Nutter Center. Cheers on their final tour ever. On sale now at Ticketmaster.com. History will be made.
Vaccines are not enough, and accurate thermometers are essential for everyone. COVID is once again a major concern, and fever is the key symptom for both the flu and COVID. An accurate thermometer, like the Exergen temporal scanner, is essential to detect fevers early and reliably. Studies have shown that non-contact thermometers are ineffective and therefore dangerous, as they create a false sense of security. Exergen is working with a single focus to ensure that everyone who needs an accurate thermometer can purchase one. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Research shows that people remember radio ads with British accents. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need, take it from a Brit.
Oi, balmy insurance blokes fetching dosh out your pocket. It's balmy. Liberty Mutual won't leave you skint, mate.
Can you just say Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need?
I think that's what I said, you blooming.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Whoa, long time no see. It's me, the Rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays at 3 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Fire Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, so this story's nuts. 4? Okay. This story's crazy. So, ESPN, IMG Academy, pretty good. Them blowing out an opponent is nothing new. They are D1 college pipeline. They're the number one pipeline school out there for a lot of reasons. Very good players there. So them blowing out this Bishop Sycamore team should surprise nobody until you start looking at the joke that was how it came about. And Kev, you started looking more of this up. So apparently this Sycamore team is they're a team, but they're not a team. It's very confusing and it's very funny, and it's something that should not have happened on ESPN of all networks. Even if that sounds very cocky and arrogant, the ESPN should not have been the network that somehow got fooled into letting this game happen, to let this team full of guys that are not high schoolers, a coach with an arrest warrant, actually get through the cracks to play a game for their second and third. We laughed during the break. You said it's an NBA schedule. I said, yeah, that's making the NBA players look bad who preach the importance of load management when you got this varsity football team playing 2 games in 3 days. I mean, my goodness. What have you come across looking this up during the break? Because I was too busy laughing. I mean, this is insane to me.
One of the things one of the announcers were saying, that Bishop, what's the name of the school? I'm sorry.
Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore said they had multiple players with Division I offers, and they checked the ESPN database, nothing. They said they checked the Rivals database, nothing. So like they started getting fishy once the score got out of hand in the first quarter. So like the announcers, Luganville, one of the lead recruiting guys, was like, I never heard of some of these guys ever. So like they started finding out as the game was going on, like something was fishy, as you talk about with some of the coaches and everything like that, like guys with records and things of that nature. I mean, it's one thing for, ESPN to be duped because, like you were saying, like that have a third party that sets this up for them and everything like that. But like, my question is, IMG Academy, like, do you have to follow the same guidelines as a state-to-state situation? I know you're an academy and everything like that, but they don't do a background check on see who they're playing, or they just scheduling games and playing who comes on the field. So
you're questioning them because that was honestly my notes. Like yes, you have to blame ESPN. They signed off on this, right. But IMG, you prepped for this. And my thing is, how the hell did you prep for this? There's no film on this team. There's no stats on this team. They don't come up in any database. They're not even acknowledged by the OHSAA as an actual school or even kind of prep academy or anything. Like,
and some kids from Ohio play for IMG Academy because they basically recruit from all across the country. Like they get kids from Florida, Georgia, Ohio, wherever. If you're good, they holler at you once you come to their school and play some football and everything like that. So like that's another thing. Like that's another layer. I know that's like the most important layer. The most important layer is some grown adults playing some high school kids in football. Granted, the high schoolers put it on them, but like that's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like a grown man that's 20-something years old should not be out here playing tackle football with some kid that's like 15, 16, 17 years old. Like that's dangerous. And then on the flip side of that, it can get very dangerous, especially for an elite program like an IMG Academy to be going up against these less talented people. One of them could get hurt because these guys are so athletically advanced and things of that nature. It's a cluster all around, man.
Yeah, so this says, and this is SB Nation, and a report I just came across that Max Preps shows Bishop Sycamore as being based out of Columbus, Ohio. It's an online-only charter school. The school's website, as it puts in, website, which deserves mocking quotations, has a blank page in its About Us section, makes zero mention of education whatsoever, but it's just preparing them for college, but does have a blog that's basically a recipe for football players to get noticed by recruiters. So while technically listed as a school, almost nothing is known about Bishop Sycamore. The school is not listed in the directory of the OHSA, as we talked about. We do know that the team exists. We know it played last season, and this was the start of its second year. The rest is all mystifying. Where this really became alarming, Kev, is when people began digging into the school more. On Friday, Bishop Sycamore played Stowe Rocks High School in Pennsylvania. Now, they did lose 19-7, more respectable. A highlight was posted from the game of a player, which was retweeted by Bishop Sycamore's Twitter account. So this meant that by all accounts, players from Bishop Sycamore, an online school with no paper trail, appeared to have lied to ESPN about having top caliber athletes so that it could play 2 games in 3 days, one of which was against the best school in the country. And before you assume that this was a JV team or some other loophole, Ben Koo of Awful Announcing looked into both games and discovered some alarming details. One of those being that they are using 100% using the same players, same quarterback, and worse, a lot of them are playing both ways. So these kids or young adults were playing both sides, offense and defense, and playing Friday and Sunday. And then they found out, they started doing some digging on the coach. The coach has an arrest warrant out for him. This is the weirdest, funniest thing. And you bring up the most interesting. Yes, we're all going to question how ESPN, how they do their homework to allow these games to happen. But if you're IMG Academy, you had to have film, right? You had to have some kind of knowledge. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Pepper Johnson coaches IMG, doesn't he?
I believe so.
So, and he was the last we knew, Pepper Johnson, former Buckeye, one of Keith Byers' best friends. He coaches, or he was part of the XFL for a little bit. Remember, he was one of the first XFL coaches to get canned, and they won, by the way. And they gave up the least amount of points of any team in the XFL when he got canned, which was kind of ironic in itself on top of it. But yeah, this is a very strange story. Easily one of the weirdest stories you'll come across.
This is weird, man. I mean, I'm not trying to blame the people down at IMG Academy, but it's something that needs to be looked into as well. Because if I'm a parent and my kid goes to IMG Academy and something like this comes out, what do you mean you're telling me that my 16-year-old son is playing against guys that are 21? Why is that happening? Like, that's not cool. Like, this ain't basketball, man. This is football. Like, this is a totally different story. And then you got this situation with ESPN being duped or whatever, or them looking into their partnership with the company that sets these games up for them. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, it's a lot of things going on here. It's multiple people at fault for this even happening. And kudos to the announcing team because they smelled something fishy during the game. Like, what? You guys got D1 athletes? It's 30-0. It's the first quarter. Where are your D1 athletes?
To be fair, when I watch the Bengals games, a lot of the announcers sound the same way, but I see your point. I'm sorry. I was doing good. We are we are almost done with this show, and I made it this far without taking a smart-ass crack. I apologize. But, that's the real issue here, Kev. Assuming that Sycamore is as fake as it appears to be, it just honestly, as I'm looking at this, it just shows how easy it is to compete at a high school level, compete despite not being sanctioned by the state. They're not even sanctioned, and not to have any oversight into the player welfare for that too. Even if they're not a high school team, for a coach to actually think it's okay to take these players and play 2 games in 3 days anyways. NFL teams, they can't handle 2 days straight of practice without having to take a 3-day water break because they need a break. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The athletic associations, like, they do not communicate across state lines. And there was a miscommunication here somewhere, but like, that's why if you're under the OHSA umbrella, that's the safest spot to be because everything is semi-regulated. Right. I mean, you at least have a governing body to a certain extent, but I wonder how many of these schools are out there that aren't associated with the OHSAA. You could just make up an online school. This is like what the Donald Trump college or whatever that he conned everyone out of. Is that what this is? No, it's not political. That actually happened. You could be mad at me if you want for that one, but that actually happened. I'm not making that up. Like, this is the equivalent to Donald Trump's little college or whatever, except they play football, kind of. So I don't get it, Kev. This whole thing is easily the strangest sports story of the day.
Absolutely.
Of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard of situations where guys have been grown men, have somehow snuck their way onto high school basketball teams. I've heard of the situations happening before. I've never heard of an entire football team made up of JUCO dropouts playing high school football. Like there's just so many moral things that are wrong. Like, if you're a person on that team, like, and you're okay with this, if you're a coach and you're okay with this, there's something wrong with you big time. Like, that you really think like, oh man, I'm about to get on this team and ball out and get noticed and get a D1 scholarship. Well, you apparently had a chance because you already had a JUCO.
I mean, and they put it in bullet pointed form here. Like, there's the crazy takeaways of this scenario. There has allegedly never been a Bishop Sycamore. They're an online school, technically playing in its second year of existence. It's an online high school, whatever. An online high school, whatever. They played 2 games in 3 days. Their head coach currently has an active arrest warrant.
Roy Johnson is his name.
Not Dwayne Johnson, like in Gridiron Gang. Like, this is Roy Johnson. I mean, their head coach currently has an active arrest warrant. Most of the players are junior college dropouts who are nowhere near high school age. And my thing is, like, for these kids, like, this is an actual, I mean, the team technically exists under some form of delusion. Like, they're playing for something. But you're playing high schoolers.
I love the game.
Junior colleges don't play high school teams.
No.
Even high school prep teams like this. This just doesn't make any sense. For one, why would this Bishop Sycamore team even want to play IMG of all schools? I mean, outside of the fact, but like, who brought this to the table? Did IMG reach out to them? Did they reach out to IMG? Who reached out to ESPN? ESPN looked at this and said, 2 great schools, 2 great whatever. No. And by the way, blowouts happen. A few years ago with Blue Smith, with Wayne, remember, like, he announced his commitment to Ohio State at the time. Remember, Wayne got blown out really bad on an ESPN game. So what I find strange is, what do these announcers find weird about this game to all of a sudden start questioning it? Blowouts happen in these games regularly. It's not, and I think they played IMG too. Didn't Wayne? No. Who did Wayne play? It doesn't matter. The point is, Wayne played a really good team on ESPN years ago. They got destroyed. Coach Minton was still the head coach there at the time. Blue Smith was there. Now at Cincinnati, by the way. Looking forward to watching him play this come up here. So shout out to him. But no, and I'm not taking a shot that they got blown out. My point is that blowouts happen in these games, even on ESPN, like that one. And announcers weren't questioning if Wayne was a real high schooler. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what's crazy about this, is it should not have taken research in the middle of the second quarter of a game to realize that, oh yeah, maybe this isn't a real high school. a lot of things drop through the cracks here. You know?
Yeah, I'm gonna check this thing out on YouTube. I'm sure somebody put it up. I gotta see like what was going wrong. Maybe they weren't lining up correctly. I don't know. I have no idea, but this is bad.
Lamar Shelley says, where was the game played and how did they come up with traveling expenses, being that they just played a Pennsylvania team?
As soon as you type in IMG, it goes to First Bishop Sycamore on YouTube.
Okay, but to be honest, maybe, like, we're making fun of them, but this is probably the most genius marketing approach ever. They will be the most popular fake high school in the history of high school football. I want to go play for them. I'm eligible to go play for them, apparently. Me and you, Kev. Let's go play for Sycamore Academy or whatever the hell they are. What are they?
Bishop Sycamore.
What are they, like this? The Sycamores?
The Olds.
The Sycamores. But where was the game played and how did they? But that's Lamar. That's a great question. Like, who's covering these expenses? I mean, it's a lot of car washes in the summer to get the expenses to try. I mean, Girl Scout cookies. What are you selling? My goodness.
They were playing in Canton.
I want to go watch this team. Road trip.
Little drive from Columbus. But I mean, IMG, they have the bread to travel all over.
I want to become a season ticket holder of this team. With all the money I make here, I want to make donations to this team. All right, folks, almost out of time here. We will keep you updated on our Glacier Softwater High School football game of the week. The Trotwood-Springfield game this weekend has been called. Both teams are real. Both teams are actual high school teams. Don't worry. This, due to COVID, unfortunately, I shouldn't have made a joke and then into a serious matter being COVID, but the game has been canceled due to COVID protocols on the side of Trotwood, according to their Twitter account. Again, I haven't seen too many official reports out there, but according to their Twitter account, that game has been canceled and that they are putting all football activities on pause until September 6th, according to what I see here on Twitter. So keep that in mind. We will be looking for a new game of the week, and we will keep you informed as what that game of the week will be. A lot of good ones to choose from. Wayne has a good game this Friday night. Fairmont and CJ, looking forward to that matchup. So we will get that buttoned up, and we will announce that to you coming up on tomorrow's show. Buckeye fans, don't go anywhere. The Buckeye Roundtable coming up next. You'll hear from Paul Keels, Skip Mossick, and, of course, 2 hours of Ohio State and local high school football talk. That's coming up right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.